First down. Make it 9. Touchdown, Notre Dame. Leonard has to dig deep right away.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
2nd and 5, play fake. Howard flips it. Smith's got it, and the freshman just waltzes in as the Buckeyes score to answer the Irish.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Judkins slips a tackle. Quinshon Judkins dives for the end zone, and Ohio State makes it 2 for 2 and takes the lead.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Judkins breaks free. Quinshon Judkins into sprint. And they'll finally run him down at the 5. An explosive play.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Heavy pressure, Howard delivers downfield. It's Smith. He's got it. Jeremiah Smith hadn't had a touch in the second half until that.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Ohio State has won yet another national championship. They have a bucket load. They have a new one. They won in 14, and here we are a little over a decade later, and the win last night against Notre Dame after an impressive opening drive that Notre Dame had that took 10 minutes off the clock at Ohio State did not blink. So congratulations to the Buckeyes. Sharice, by the way, one of our faithful who's always in the chat room, Ohio State fan, congratulations. We're going to get into a lot of nuggets. We'll first get our own feedback and opinions. Garrett Ross, Jack McKenzie, running the mothership. And we appreciate your time on 365 Sports. I thought when Notre Dame went on that, 18 play, whatever amount, 10 minutes, I'm like, they're going to try to bully this game, which is what maybe we thought they would have to do. And I was like, my God, this is impressive. Ohio State didn't blink. They had 2 or 3 75-yard drives. But, it got to the point where it almost became a blowout. Notre Dame hung around, but there was the best football team in Ohio State.
Yeah, and look, they had the best roster all year long, and we kind of knew that going into the season. I did a top 5 last year before the season, saying like he's kind of out of excuses when it comes to talent. He changed the quarterback, he changed the offensive coordinator. You add Caleb Downs, you add all these guys, Seth McLaughlin, Quinshon Judkins. You have the deepest team in the country, and they suffered through offensive line and all that stuff and came out on top. I genuinely thought, okay, Marcus Freeman has this thing game planned out right. First thing they're going to do is just pound it down the field, eat up clock when you've got a big explosive offense like Ohio State, and you're not really that in Notre Dame. The only way you can combat it is taking large swaths of time away. The problem is that your defense, which has been absolutely stellar all year long, responded 3 minutes later by not being that. And Ohio State just goes and scores. Notre Dame gets the ball back. They don't even have it for 2-3 minutes.
Yeah.
Ohio State gets it again. It's 14-7. It was on.
Yeah, they had 2 drives minus 4 yards after they had taken that 7-0 lead. Ohio State was fantastic. My concern about Notre Dame was, would they have enough firepower? And Ohio State, if it's not Henderson or it's not Jeremiah Smith or it's not Egbuka, it is who?
Oh, Quinshon Judkins.
Judkins, who had 3 touchdowns last night. The Ole Miss transfer, he was fantastic. Craig?
Yeah, congratulations to the Ohio State Buckeyes on winning the national championship, bringing this college football season to a close. Congrats to Notre Dame on an incredible year, a terrific run in the postseason, and certainly nothing to hang their heads about. And they'll be around, and we'll likely see this matchup again in the years to come. But I thought it was a pretty big letdown. Ultimately, let's just be honest about it. As far as a competitive game, it was not what you were hoping for, especially with the big stage and the platform of having it, all to yourself this Monday night. And I just thought that was unfortunate, and it inevitably led to a lot of midway through the game overreactions, probably from many of the same who were panties in a wad after the first round of the playoffs. They just pop out, man. The first sign the game might go sideways, they're like, see? The sport's doomed. It's like, I saw somebody mention this yesterday. There's a bunch of people covering college football that don't seem to like college football.
Yeah.
And I could not agree more. And I know at times I don't always agree with everything, like in terms of the sport, and I don't like everything about the sport these days, or there's things that I feel like could be better, or there's things that, could be tweaked and improved upon and all of that. But I also understand there's been a lot thrown at fans the last few years, from transfer portal, expanded playoff, NIL, like all of these different things that have gone on. And so that's why I periodically ask the question, like, temperature checked on you guys, like the fandom, and not only your own, but kind of like worldwide. What do you feel from the college football fans out there? And so, yeah, when that game started to get a little sideways, you saw all the negative Nellies start popping their heads out like Punxsutawney Phil on Groundhog Day, just ready to rip the playoff and rip the sport and do whatever. And fortunately, that game turned a little bit, at least gave us a glimmer at the end of like, okay, maybe this can turn into something. Maybe this will make people look really dumb, like if Notre Dame comes storming back, but just never made it close enough to feel all that important or that competitive. Ohio State's got the roster that, was put together with millions upon millions of dollars, and Notre Dame does as well. But Ohio State in particular was highlighted as the most talented team from day number one of this whole season. And at the end, standing tall as the national champs, I think they proved that. I think they showed that. And, they, obviously deserve to be the national champs. I am curious, though, to hear, as much as I'm kind of highlighting criticism, I'm more or less kind of poking fun at, like, how much people who cover it seem to hate it, and also how quick we are to like call something a failure or like turn on it. And it's like, dude, it's midway through the first quarter. Like, Notre Dame, it's 7-0. It's kind of like the Ohio State, the last game against Texas, where it's like they were up as maybe like one or two scores, and you already thought the game was over based on the announcers.
Yeah, it was 21-7, I think it was. Yeah,
I felt like it was even before they got to 21.
Well,
but
it was 7-7. Oh, it doesn't matter.
I'm talking about when the announcers started saying, like, this game's pretty much over. It's like, dude, it's 14-7. Yeah. So, I don't know. I was not entertained by the game, guys, so I more or less kind of got mesmerized in between the big moments by, like, the pessimism and kind of the just overall sort of agitation I felt surrounding that game.
Yeah, there seems to, well, that's what social media brings to the table.
You're right.
I'm the one that normally has to be reminded of that, but I wanted it to be a fun, competitive game. It was for a little bit, and then Ohio State was just better, period. It doesn't mean anything other than they're the best football team. Think about this. Ohio State now has reeled off wins against Tennessee, Oregon, Texas, and Notre Dame after the loss to Michigan. And they will turn around and open up against Texas next year. So that's an amazing 4-game stretch and a 5-game stretch with the Horns in Columbus next year, who both are being ranked 1 and 2, depending on which gambling site you go to on who's the favorite to win it next year, which we will get to it at some point.
Well, trying to pick the favorite for next year and what everything's going to be is like a fool's errand.
No, it's not, though. I get what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing with you. I just know that it's going to be just like the AP Top 25 poll in August next year is going to be pretty much 7 to 12 teams,
But trying to, like, if you really want to do it right, just admit that you won't know because –
Buddy, anybody doing a top 25 and dropping today is doing it for purely content and not to be accurate. Like, let's be honest about the situation.
So let's look at that. I'm just kidding.
But look, let's just look at Ohio State and Texas, the teams that were the two most talented rosters. We've talked about Texas at length. They're losing 20 guys. 20 guys. That's a lot. Now, they can have faith in the guys that they have, and they have faith that Arch Manning's going to be a star and that they've got good wide receivers and running backs, and they've got Ryan Wingo, and they've got all this. But none of these guys have been in the starting lineup for 12 games, okay? Ohio State, they kept that whole defense intact and added Caleb Downs. Essentially, next year, that defense is Caleb Downs and 10 new dudes. The offense is Julian Sand, Jeremiah Smith, and Carnell Tate and new dudes. So, and Julian Sand's not started. He was just the number 1 quarterback last year. So, pretending like you think it's just going to be like it was when these teams rolled it back again, it's different now.
Well, it is different now. And, of course, the transfer portal can make a team you think is pretty good even better. So, but let's get to what
we
saw
about
last
what just
night,
happened.
Please.
Yeah.
Ryan Day's resume This is a guy under amazing fire the last 4 years, couldn't beat Michigan. This year lost at home to Michigan, couldn't score more than 10 points, Michigan. And then what one win, a national title, does to a resume. It's amazing. It's like what it does to a head coach in the NFL, a Super Bowl. 67-10, one national title, 2 title appearances, 4 trips to the college football playoff, 2 Big Ten titles, 6 consecutive AP top 10 finishes, which we seem to take for granted because of some schools or what they do, 6 straight top 7 recruiting classes. That's from Chris Hummer. He'll join us later in the week. What a resume, just with now adding a national title. It was already pretty damn good.
Yeah. And I think when we talk about last night and we get back to that a little bit, I do think just the general conversation I was kind of trying to eventually allude to, my rambling, was about the playoff itself and kind of like the feeling around it. And I think that's a worthy debate to have about, like, as we've had before, the structure of it and how it ended, because the middle was great, right? The beginning sucked for a lot of people. The middle was great. The ending, not so good. So I think we could talk about the playoff and the format and reflect on that a little bit. But in terms of that graphic, like, who's that for? Y'all know who that graphic's for? That's for Ohio State fans. Nobody else thinks Ryan Day should be fired. Nobody else was sitting there going like, this dude lost to Michigan again? Throw his ass on the streets. That graphic is solely and only for Ohio State fans. Now, if it's to just show everybody else what he's accomplished, hey, like me or Paul or whoever, like, we can all look at that and go, damn, that's pretty impressive. And it is. It's very impressive. It's a great resume. It's a better resume than a lot of coaches out there, past and present. He's a really good head coach. He's had stumbles, and because of where he is and who he is and all of that comes with it, it's magnified times 100. But I don't need to see that to know he's great. I don't need to see that to know that Ohio State's one of the top teams, obviously right now, the top team in the entire country. But for some reason, Ohio State fans need to see that to be reminded of what they have, and yet it's still not good enough. So last night, part of me was happy for them, and another part of me is going, you don't deserve it. Like, the moment he loses again, you're going to be like, boo, get the hell out of here. And so that's where I was torn, was like, I don't think the fan base deserves Ryan Day in so many ways.
No. Look, if this was any previous incarnation of the postseason, he is either fired at the end of the year for losing to Michigan again because he's ruined the season, they can't win the national title, all their hopes are dashed, or number 2, he goes into an offseason where it's win the national title or else, and then there's no way to get out of it. There's no way to prove that, yeah, everybody has bad days. Michigan has my number right now. Give me a second, I'll get it figured out, but I've only lost 10 games. 3 of them are to Michigan. The others are scattershot around a who's who of college football. The worst team he's ever lost to is Missouri. The worst team he's ever lost to is Missouri.
Beat 4 straight top 10 all-time programs to win a national title, dude. What are we talking about?
Yeah, so let's not let me just put everything. That's what the fan base needs to know. Like, yes, we know the Michigan game is super important. It's the big rivalry game. But you are in a new world now where it is not the end of the world if you lose it, provided you didn't suck the whole rest of the year. If you were elite the entire rest of the year, which they were, you can go ahead, clear your throat, take a shower, and get back to work. And that's what they did. And now you don't have to maybe stress out about if a Michigan game with the crappiest quarterback they've had in 25 years goes the wrong way and your season's over.
They just beat number 9, number 1, who had beaten them by 1, number 5, and number 7.
And I will correct, Oregon's not a top 10 all-time team, but y'all know what point I'm making here. I mean,
they
beat
were the number
Tennessee.
1 seed in the whole thing.
Yeah,
too.
no, I know. I'm clarifying there for like the one guy who's like, well, technically.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a hell of a run. It was an all-time run, and Ryan Day deserves to be rewarded. And I know the moment he loses to like Penn State or to Michigan again, all of this won't matter. It'll be like blank slate. But I think that's just where we get into goofy territory, quite honestly, and we need to stop feeding the Ohio State fans that think that they deserve more than what they're getting, because it's asinine, and it's just a little strange, honestly.
They only have double-digit national titles, or is it 8? Hold on. They also beat number 3 Penn State. They beat number 5 at the time Indiana. This is an all-time run. It doesn't mean they're the best team of all time. It doesn't have to be. But this year, they proved, despite the loss, Oregon by 1 on the road, and then the game against Michigan, this is a great football team, and they won the national title. Congratulations.
So I have a really good friend who's a Chiefs fan, and we have a group chat of some of the guys we used to run around in Waco back in the old days here. And he, during the game the other day, he was – oh crap! Here goes Andy Reid doing his cute stuff again. And my next response is like, Kyle, we all love you, but kindly shut up. You have no room to complain about any coaching decision Andy Reid makes. It's the same thing for Ohio State fans. Like now, next year, if they're like, oh, here goes Day doing this again. Buddy, go to the athletic center, walk in front of the trophy case, and look at the date on that. Yeah. It's 2024, so don't complain.
He just won more hardware in a postseason than some coaches win their entire career.
Yeah. All right, here's a note, and this was something that they were incredible at. Texas fans can relate to this. 25 times teams have gone first and goal. That could be from the 9 or the 10 or the 4. The 9th time in 25 attempts, somebody's been first and goal against Ohio State and came away, not with allowing a field goal, but nothing, including the drive that ended the Texas game on the strip scoop score by Sawyer. That's crazy good. Not a single point. And, of course, Notre Dame did not score. It had another first and goal, too.
All right, now the big question for Ohio State is the guy who coached all that, is he living in Columbus, Ohio, or Norman, Oklahoma next year?
Yeah, with Knowles, Jim Knowles, who has a great – and there have been times, remember, when Jim Knowles has been questioned about his football IQ and coaching. How about this note? I was stunned by this. I'm old enough to know a lot about the history of the conferences and whatever, and I know what the certain conferences have done lately, including the SEC. This back-to-back, Michigan and then Ohio State, it's the first back-to-back Big Ten consensus national championships since the days of Bubba frickin' Smith in Michigan State in 1965 and 66. Nebraska, in parentheses, Chris Fanini, they won it 94, 95, 97. Doesn't count. They were a part of the Big 12. That is stunning. And they're only getting deeper and better with the new schools that joined the conference that added to what they had already.
Yeah, and maybe we've seen a changing of the guard temporarily. Maybe next year another rando team wins. I said it's not rando, but like Michigan, Ohio State, maybe it's another Big Ten team. Maybe Oregon finally gets it done. But I do think that we're in an era where we're not going to see the same teams because of the 12-team playoff. All you have to do is have one bad day, one key injury, and you're playing against another elite team, and they can exploit that better. And look, we saw some blowouts. We also saw some really close games. Texas isn't in the semifinals if calls on the field go a certain way, right? I mean, then I know that's a complaint about the officials, but that's how close games are. That you get a big call, you can win the game because of that. So in this era where there's not so much distance. I mean, there's still some, but there's not gigantic cavernous gaps like there were before. Who knows what can happen?
By the way, the Michigan State, that second year, 1 second, Craig, it was not even an AP of the UPI. It was the National Football Foundation, which even almost makes that. Yeah, they were back-to-back national titles, but not since then. That's 60 years ago, basically, until what we saw the last 2 years. Craig?
Yeah, I mean, I think we got the point. It's been a long time, and I don't know. I feel like it's cool. It's a cool mark for the Big Ten. I also think it's partly due to the era that we're in. They are benefiting as greatly as anybody from the ability to have more money than anybody and the ability to spend that money. And so what we've seen is a game that's been rigged up now where what was maybe a 5% chance that a TCU or an Iowa State or somebody like that could ever win a national championship, that is now 0. And if it's not 0, it's 0.0001. And the only thing that gives it that 0.0001 is that if there's somehow some oil tycoon like Texas Tech's boy or something decides, like, I'm spending $1 billion on the roster this year and we're buying a national championship. Barring that, like, yeah, it's going to be the Big Ten and the SEC schools pretty much every single year, and the ACC for as long as they are the way that they are. And, I just think that that's going to be a big part of – we're going to hear a lot about Big Ten titles and SEC titles and stuff moving forward more than we ever did previously, because I think it's just it all suits them. But for the Big Ten, that is a long time. You wouldn't have thought it had been that long. But for a while there, I mean, Ohio State's kind of carried the conference. I mean, Oregon gave them an influx, but that was just this year. I mean, Michigan's been good to pretty good, but, I mean, we just watched TCU beat them a few years ago in the playoffs, right? Then Harbaugh gets over the hump.
3 years ago.
Harbaugh gets over the hump and does so with, I don't know, a pretty big story riding alongside of it about this Connor Stallions guy and all of that. But, like the Big Ten has kind of been in the back seat compared to the SEC, but flaunting as much and talking about its history as much and making as much money and doing all those things. So, yeah, you would have thought they'd maybe flex their muscle back-to-back years prior or sooner than that. But, yeah, it's been a very long time, and I just think kind of where I started off with this, I think that this is the last time we read a graphic like that. I think it's going to become pretty commonplace now because Ohio State's not going to stop spending money. Michigan's not going to sit on their hands now. I mean, and look at them. They won a national title. What happened the very next year? They beat Ohio State. Hell yeah, buddy. And then Ohio State wins a national title. So, like, they've already taken back the aura, if you will. Oregon's not going to stop spending money. So, I think the Big Ten's just getting started, really, because they, like the SEC, will benefit as greatly, if not even more greatly, than anybody from the era that we're in right now. So get used to it. I'm afraid and if you don't like it, I'm afraid that's something you're going to have to get used to probably.
By the way, the Big Ten, and during my heyday as far as young and understanding and being a part of college football, the USC owned basically the Pac-12. Occasionally it was UCLA, Stanford, Washington, whoever. But there were teams ranked number one in the Big Ten that would go into the Rose Bowl and come out with a loss. It happens. It happens in the Orange Bowl. It would happen in the Sugar Bowl or the Cotton Bowl, whatever. But that happened quite a bit to the teams out of the Big Ten, the Ohio State-Michigan run, where they played at every Big 12. They played at every Rose Bowl game from 1969 through 1981. And there were teams that went in to have a chance to win a national title. Some were able to at least finish in the top five, but some that did not get a chance to finish it off. Michigan, Ohio State, great run for the Big Ten, not over. Next year, we put this to sleep and start all over again. Will Howard, it's a great story. Shehan Jeyarajah is going to join us in about, I'd say 5 minutes or so. He was at the game. But I want to put this up because I saw this and went, oh, my God. I almost forgot part of this story. Will Howard in 2020, Shehan saw him play for the first time. He was stuck behind Skylar Thompson. They then added K-State Adrian Martinez out of Nebraska. They then recruited Avery Johnson, and he went to Ohio State after always having somebody around him. And he was pretty good at times at Kansas State, really good, and now he wins the national title. Good for him, showing resiliency and a tremendous drive to win the game, to win a national title. Ohio State's not done. They are loading up. You saw the stat, 7 consecutive, top 7, is that right? No, recruiting classes. They do lose Devin Brown. He's headed to Cal, quarterback, leaving to go play for the Cal Golden Bears.
Yeah, I like that pickup for Cal. Devin Brown was someone who, really he was a very highly recruited player, but was constantly just, 1 star below the guy who was on the roster ahead of him, whether it was Kyle McCord a year ago or Will Howard brought in specifically to start, but a guy who stuck it out and was there last night. He's getting his ring and is now going to get a chance to start for a couple years at Cal. I wish him the best. And the other thing I think is awesome about Devin Brown, he wears number 33. He's trying to start the old school quarterback. Like, let's get back to Doug Flutie 22s. Bernie Kosar wore 20 when he was at Miami. I'm all for quarterbacks wearing numbers in the 20s and 30s and even 40s. Maybe an 88 at quarterback. I don't know. Just wear cooler numbers to me. Yeah. Let's go old school.
By the way, Craig, before you respond to that, we will have Shehan in a minute. We will look at the final AP poll later. We'll do an entire segment on that because there's a lot of interesting notes about the top 25. Craig?
Yeah, I mean, Will Howard's a nice story. You're going to have to really press me harder, though, to get me to, feel some, underdog emotions for the Ohio State and their star-studded roster. But, yeah, he's a great story. He was surrounded by great players. He played really well last night. I'm sure he'll serve as an inspiration to other guys who are maybe getting pushed out of their job or whatever. But, yeah, I mean, I'm happy for him. He had a lot of detractors, and I think he shut some of them up, but I also think he was definitely blessed with a lot at his disposal. So it's not quite you went to North Texas and took them to the conference championship or something, something that was more on his shoulders. But he did prove a lot of people wrong, and he seems like a good dude. So good for Will Howard. And as far as Devin Brown leaving, I mean, a lot of this roster movement stuff we're going to see, it doesn't resonate the same with me because of the transfer portal. But I do think that Devin Brown to, Cal, you said, is a good move. They've got a good offense. They had a really good team last year. And obviously they had to replace Fernando Mendoza, who's now going to ride the momentum out at Indiana and do his thing there. So Cal was in need, and Devin Brown's obviously a guy who people feel like has a lot of talent. He wouldn't have been Ohio State otherwise. But, yeah, I think you're starting to see that quarterback room get a little bit of clarity and just kind of the quarterback moves that had not been made, a little bit more clarity now. So Cal's been filled. And any questions about Devin Brown have been answered, and you move on to whoever the next guy is. But that does answer a couple questions, and good luck to him, and that seems to be a nice pickup for the Golden Bears.
All right, Shehan Jeyarajah, CBS Sports, joins us here on 365 Sports. We've given our thoughts about the Ohio State run, the championship. I mentioned your note about Will Howard, and thanks for your time, by the way. You were in Atlanta, correct?
I was not this time.
Okay, I wasn't sure. Okay, that's right, for the other game. So just overall, your thoughts about the run they made. The Buckeyes, incredibly talented. They win the national title. Ryan Day now has that off his back. No matter about the record against Michigan and the run the Buckeyes made.
Yeah, well, it was a really impressive run. When you talk about 4-game runs in the history of college football, I mean, it's got to be up there. Of course, the first time that we've ever had this 4-round, 12-team playoff, but I mean, from the beginning of the playoff, it was clear they were the best team in the country. And they demolished Tennessee, of course. They run Oregon out of the building. They have a great game against Texas, and they outlast Notre Dame. I mean, to do this 4 games in a row for anybody is really, really difficult. And I felt like heading into the season, heading into the postseason as well, this was the best roster in the country. They had some really notable retentions after the 2023 season, especially their defensive ends, Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau, who both could have been top NFL draft picks. So it was kind of a perfect storm for this team. And I think it's very fitting that they ultimately were able to get it done.
Will Howard's ascendancy here, he got pushed out the door because Kansas State doesn't just find Avery Johnsons all the time. So he gets kind of pushed out the door at Kansas State. He winds up at Ohio State, who pushed a quarterback who lost 1 game out the door. They pair him with Chip Kelly, and it was a perfect match for them. And after, he won the Big 12 title, but then he ran up against the wall against Texas. His hero tale is pretty good, isn't it, Sean?
No question. And I do want to point to that one thing that you mentioned, right? Kyle McCord gets pushed out the door after losing 1 game. So if anybody feels like pressure isn't real at Ohio State, look at what Ohio State did to a quarterback who only lost 1 game. But it really is such a great story. I remember back in 2020, when Will Howard first made his debut at Kansas State, I don't want to exaggerate, but he was one of the worst quarterbacks I'd ever seen in the Big 12. He was not a good football player. He wasn't supposed to play at that point. He was only thrust into starting action because Skylar Thompson got hurt, but he was just inaccurate. He was a bad decision maker. He was not he just wasn't decisive with the football. I think he finished with 8 touchdowns to 11 interceptions and completed 53% of his passes, but you just saw him continue to get better over his career. 2022 was kind of his magnum opus as the Kansas State Wildcats, leading them to a Big 12 title, being super decisive, making great throws, making great reads. And you see him land at Ohio State, and I was a little skeptical of the move when it was made. I just felt look, they're so used to having NFL level passing back there, and Well, I think that Will Howard probably will get his opportunity at the next level. He isn't a CJ Stroud. He isn't a Justin Fields necessarily. I don't even think he's, as a pure passer, a Kyle McCord, but he just gave them everything that they needed from that team. He's just a winning player. He was able to do some stuff with his legs, and I think he just deserves so much credit for the way that he elevated himself. He was not a recruit that many people wanted outside of the state of Kansas, but he did a great job, and now he goes out a champion.
Shehan, how do you think Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame kind of put it back together? I mean, nothing to hang their heads about, obviously. No existential crisis or anything like that losing to this Ohio State team. But what do you feel like they kind of think looking in the mirror after that one last night and now what comes next?
Well, I think that more than anything, they feel like, we were so close. We had our chances. Of course, they drive into within the 10-yard line, have a chance to potentially pull it within one score and fail to do so. So, I think that they're going to be thinking for a while about these missed opportunities, but if I'm Notre Dame, if I'm a Notre Dame fan, if I'm a member of that roster, I am so excited because this kind of wasn't supposed to be the year yet. This was a little bit of a transition year. If you look at the state of their roster, they replaced most of their offensive line. They lost a couple of key guys last year. And in 2025, the vast majority of this roster is returning. Now, quarterback Riley Leonard is gone, of course. Defensive back Xavier Watts. And, so you have to replace a couple of pieces. But so many guys have gotten the opportunity to play, one, because of how long the season was, but two, because of the injuries that they've suffered as well. So I think specifically about their offensive line in 2025. They're going to have 6 or 7 guys who could start at most places in the country. I mean, you saw Charles Jagus came off the bench after suffering what appeared to be a season-ending injury before the season, plays really well at left tackle. Well, Anthony Knapp was a freshman All-American at left tackle, and Emil Wagner is a player that they're really excited about at right tackle. Jeremiah Love will be back for them at running back. Jaden Greathouse will be back for them at wide receiver. Really, the only question that you have to have about this team in 2025 is quarterback. And I think both Steve Angeli and CJ Carr have a lot more upside than what Riley Leonard gave you as a passer. So I'd be very excited right now if I'm a Notre Dame fan. And I think that Marcus Freeman is just really becoming one of the faces of college football.
Okay, so we've had our first ever 12-team playoff. And as you know, I mean, there's this angst and there's always, oh my God, immediately Indiana gets blown out. In the end, I enjoyed the hell out of it. There were some games that got opened up, and that was not even the close game last night at times. I loved it. What about you?
Well, I think that one thing that people have pointed to across this playoff is, the regular season meant a little bit less because, look, the game, that would have been a debilitating loss for Ohio State. They come back winning the national championship. But what I think people miss in conversations like that is that 125 other teams had more meaningful seasons in 2025. Boise State had a more meaningful season than they would have had than if they had just won the Mountain West. Arizona State had a more meaningful season than they would have had. And so, one, I think that you look at its impact across the regular season, it was immense. I've said it over and over again. I've had more people ask me about UNLV football or Iowa State than I've ever had in my entire life. The other piece of this, too, though, is you look at the actual product on the field. Yeah, the first round was filled with blowouts. It's football, not even college football. It's football. Sometimes blowouts happen. It's just part of the game. But you look at that quarterfinal round, there were a couple of really great games, including Texas versus Arizona State going to double overtime. You look at the semifinal round, both games were all-timer types with Penn State versus Notre Dame, and then, of course, Ohio State versus Texas. And then the national title game, the score is 31-7, but Notre Dame comes all the way back, gives themselves a chance at the end of the game, and just isn't able to get it done. But a really competitive game overall. We got some great football. We got kind of some outcomes that we didn't necessarily expect. I mean, very few people picked Ohio State over Notre Dame heading into the college football playoff. It was definitely possible. Nobody's shocked that Ohio State was good enough to win, but this was as open a year as I think we've had in a while, and I think the format has a lot to do with that. So I love the format. I'm really excited to see how it continues to grow heading forward, and I think that we're in good hands with this 12-team field.
What do you think about the next year, I mean, you're going to have to write it way too early, top 25, and all those things that you got to do to fill up the content sheet and all that. But do you look at this offseason as pretty much a clean slate, as much as it ever will be now because of the way college football works?
Well, I wrote an article earlier today where I just tried to handicap who's going to be number one in the preseason top 25, not even getting into the rest of the top 25. And it's a lot harder than you'd expect. I kind of made the case for Notre Dame right there. I think that they're going to be right there with anybody. Certainly Texas with Arch Manning coming in. But if you look at specifically Dennis Dodd's preseason top 25, the way too early ranking that he just put out, 6 of the top 7 projected teams are replacing a quarterback. And it reminds me so much of that 2021 season where you have Trevor Lawrence and you have Mac Jones and you have just all these guys graduating out at the same time, Justin Fields being the other big one. And it opened the door. It opened the door for Stetson Bennett in Georgia to come through. I think that 2025 could look a lot like that as well, where you just have so much turnover between the real sort of superpowers in college football. I mean, Ohio State, when you think about the amount of guys they're going to lose, it's going to be hard to go back to back. I think that when you look at a team like Georgia, they're losing so many of their top pieces. Texas losing a number of their top pieces. I do think this is going to be as open a year as we've ever had in 2025. And the other piece of this too is I think that it changes the way dramatically that we think about the field and the sport, the fact that we have this 12-team field. I mean, in 2024, if we only have the 4-team playoff, Notre Dame and Ohio State aren't even in the field. I think that that's going to be a huge shaper of how we talk about and have conversations about these teams heading into 2025.
Shehan, the Big Ten riding a pretty fun little 2-year run right here. Do you feel like this is kind of the status quo moving forward? I was mentioning a little while ago, like everything suits them now. Everything favors them and the SEC, but maybe even the Big Ten in some cases more because of their alumni bases and things like that. But are you one buying into the narrative about the shifting of the guard and the dominance of college football? Do you think it's wide open? Just kind of how do you feel about that particular storyline that we've seen creeping up, especially here towards the end of this playoff?
Well, the last time that the Big Ten won back-to-back national championships was 1965. And the last time that you had back-to-back AP national championships specifically was 1942. So, like, this doesn't happen where you have these teams go and do it. And, I mean, look, even Michigan last year, right? Michigan hadn't won one in the BCS or CFP eras. Ohio State had only won one total in the BCS and CFP, or in the CFP era, and then only won one in the BCS era before that. So, like, it's been pretty rare that we've had Big Ten teams consistently competing at this level. And you could even throw in Penn State getting into the Final Four as well and having a chance to play for a national championship. So I do think that there is a little bit of a shift in play, and I think there's a couple of reasons for it. One, historically being the last 20, 25 years or so, recruiting has been such a local game. It's based on proximity. It's based on finding guys who are close to your campus. And yes, there's some greasing the wheels under the table, but like that's the biggest driver of everything. Well, now when we're in a true pay-for-play type environment, I mean, look at some of the schools in the Big Ten and the amount of money that they have access to, both in terms of alumni and also in terms of metros. Like all of a sudden, yes, you have the Ohio States and the Michigans. I think everybody knows about those, but you have the Oregons jump into the mix. You have the USCs, the Washingtons. I think you even have the Iowas and the Wisconsins in a unique kind of way. And historically, like SEC teams have been a lot looser with being willing to play under the table with money. If suddenly everything's out in the open and it's a pure money game, I think that does actually give a lot of benefit to Northern teams and Western teams in a way that we haven't seen. So, look, I don't think that the SEC is going to be shut out of the next 10 national championships by any means, but I do think that we are seeing a restructuring that is going to change the way that we look at things. And I think that the SEC's run of dominance is probably coming to an end.
Shehan, I saw the top 25, the AP. Obviously, the national champion is Ohio State. They win the game, like when they had even the BCS or whatever. But I did notice that, man, there's a lot of infiltration this year inside the final AP top 25. Group of 5 schools, a lot of them. Finally, Arizona State got some attention at number 7, etc. Do you feel like this year, everyone may say, oh, it does look like there's a change, a little bit of a change, but then go right back to what everyone always thinks when we get to August?
Well, I think that what's going to be most interesting, right, is like you talk about this run of dominance in the SEC. It's coincided with Nick Saban and Urban Meyer and Steve Spurrier, and like none of those guys are here anymore. You've still got Kirby Smart, who's an all-time great, absolutely, but like, you know, Steve Sarkisian is still somebody who's never won a national championship. You look at the 3 coaches who have won national championships. Only one of them is now in the SEC, one Dubba Swinney in the ACC, and now Ryan Day in the Big Ten. So, like, I think that as the years go on, you're going to see a little bit of a lessening of that implicit kind of credibility that existed when Nick Saban was a member of the Southeastern Conference. In fact, I think that Alabama might be the most interesting of these guys to kind of look at, especially when you look into 2025. I'm fascinated to see where they're ranked and rated after a pretty disappointing 9-4 season for Kalen DeBoer. But I do think that you are starting to see, and this is, I think, also a consequence of the 12-team playoff, you're starting to see more teams enter the conversation, enter the lexicon, enter people's kind of consciousness. And I don't think that that's something that's going to slow down. Like, we're going to think about UNLV a little bit more because of what they achieved in the Mountain West and the fact that they gave themselves a chance to be in the college football playoff. We're going to think about Arizona State just a little bit more. We're going to think about BYU and Utah and all these teams that have gotten into the conversation. So I do think that this is only the beginning of a long-term shift. Now, look, the SEC and Big Ten, resource-wise, like, they're going to be able to do some stuff that the other conferences just aren't able to do. But I do think that as we have more teams involved in this conversation, it's going to impact the way that people see them. And I always say perception drives reality in college football more than maybe any other sport in the world.
Do you think that we're set up for a Donnybrook over the CFP and the money and all these different things and the seeding over the next couple years?
Sorry, what do you mean by that?
A fight between the conferences.
No, I do think that we will. And, you know, it's so fascinating, right? You heard whenever we entered this new structure that Brett Yormark, one of the big things that he said was like, we want a look-in after, 2027, 2028, whenever it is, because we are given a smaller amount of the pie right now, and we think that can and should change later. So I do think that we are going to have more of these fights and more of these conversations. I mean, this year, right, like the conversation has been so much, the Big Ten wants to guarantee 4 teams because they're not sure they can get one. Well, it was the SEC who didn't get 4 teams like they expected. And instead, the Big Ten was the one that not only had 4 teams in, but also produced the national champion. So I do think that we are going to see a little bit more of a fight. And I think also to some of the teams that changed conferences, Oklahoma being one among them, USC being among them, Washington, like some of these schools are trying to set themselves up long term. And if they don't have success on the field, I think there might be even more frantic energy to try to pull more and more money. So I think we're only getting started with this, but I am hopeful that especially with kind of the advent of this 12-team playoff, that power gets to be distributed just a little bit differently.
Jaden Greathouse. My goodness, a star's born, right? Because of what he did in that game when they came back to beat Penn State. He was fantastic last night. Texas people know him for he was a great player at Westlake with Klubnik, but you brought that up, and it was good to see what a great catch for the touchdown that he kind of all of a sudden had the eyes of the country that may not have really known much about him, but now they do.
No, and this is one of the greatest parts, in my opinion, about the 12-team playoff is that usually the idea of like a program legend or like a star in college football, it was reserved to the team that probably won the national championship. But you have some of these guys popping up, and just to refer to a few, right? Like Cam Scadaboo is going to be a player that we talk about for a long time, even though his team didn't even win a college football playoff game. But I think that Jaden Greathouse, along with Jeremiah Smith of Ohio State, probably the biggest breakout star of these past couple of games. I mean, 233 yards and 3 touchdowns in the last 2 matchups alone. Like you said, the game-changing play against Penn State to put Notre Dame in the national championship, really, like when you talk about modern era, that's up there with the most important plays in the history of the program. And then he almost carries them all the way back in that fourth quarter. So definitely a breakout star. And the other piece too is when you talk about Notre Dame and when you talk about Jaden Greathouse, I think that if you're Marcus Freeman and if you're Mike Denbrock, their offensive coordinator, it has to change the way that you think about structuring your offense. Because this year, of course, there's such a run-based offense and a quarterback run-based offense. You've got some receivers out there, Jaden Greathouse chief among them, who are big-time players. And I think that whether it is Steve Angeli or whether it's CJ Carr who ultimately starts for them, you've got to involve them a little bit more in your game plan, and you need to continue to develop that passing game because Jaden Greathouse is a star. I said it when he committed to Notre Dame coming out of high school and when he enrolled in 2022, I believe, he is the type of player that Notre Dame was not getting under Brian Kelly. Marcus Freeman got him. Marcus Freeman has retained him. Now I think that it's time for Marcus Freeman to deploy him at an even higher level.
I thank you very much, Shehan. It's been great to have you on. And when college football stories happen throughout the next few months, hopefully we can get you on. But I did like what you had. You said something about the winners of the 12-team playoffs. To me, college football, the game, the fans, etc. But you also mentioned, other than a lot of the teams that made it, you included UNLV and South Carolina, because it allowed them to be known, right? It allowed people to know, like you said, that asked you about UNLV, asked you about Iowa State, that otherwise would never have asked you about any of them.
No, there's no question about it. I mean, South Carolina fans are going to look and wonder what could have been and think, like, we should have been in. But, like, in the 4-team playoff, we don't talk about that team any differently than we do about, like, Syracuse, right? Like they're a team that would have just had a nice season and we'd say, congrats on your 9-3, now move on. But like they were legitimate college football playoff contenders because of this new system and because of the way they finished the year. And so I think that if you are a program that's a little bit less of a have, even in one of the 2 big conferences, this is a game changer for you. It gives you the opportunity to play your way up. It gives Indiana the chance to play your way up. It gives SMU the chance to play their way up. And again, even if you aren't a team that make it in, like you mentioned, to be in that conversation and to be in the center of the national spotlight, even if it is because you got left out, it's just a game-changing sort of thing. And not only will it impact South Carolina and the way that they think about this 2024 team, but when we look into 2025 and we start putting out our way too early rankings, people are going to look at South Carolina a little bit closer because of how they finished and because they were so close.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Shehan Jeyarajah, CBS Sports, been with us almost every Tuesday for the last several weeks on college football, and the season ended last night. And we will look at the AP Top 25 poll. I was like, I don't know. Paul, Craig, feedback, Garrett, whatever. And then I started looking at it. I'm like, wait a minute. There's a lot to kind of digest based on the final AP Top 25 poll. We'll do that, among other things, today. We'll have Craig at Off the Radar at 4:45. Paul's Top 5 a little bit later on. Hall of Famer John McClain today will join us in the 5 o'clock hour on the NFL playoffs reaching the conference championship game. This is 365 Sports.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
A another So-So pizza from So-So's Pizza? But wait,
There's Marco's.
our new triple pepperoni Magnifico pizza is stacked with classic, crispy cupped, and new bold shredded pepperoni. It's triple the flavor and only at Marco's. Just $11.99.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Looking for the best selection of new and pre-owned cars in Central Texas? Look no further than Allen Samuels in Waco. From trucks to family SUVs, we've got it all at Allen Samuels in Waco, your friend in the car business.
Come by, let's be friends.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Congratulations, Ohio State Buckeye fans. You got another national title. I saw the AP Top 25. You have the national title. Then they release this. And you can sit there and, whoever your favorite, like, for example, Syracuse finished in the top 20. Good for them. I started looking at this, and yes, you have some alphas. Ohio State, Notre Dame, Oregon, Texas, Penn State, Georgia. Boom, 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 boom. But start looking at this. Arizona State finally gets a little respect at 7. Boise at 8. Indiana still remained in the top 10. I didn't think they would. You have SMU 12, BYU after just constantly being overlooked. There's Iowa State, South Carolina, Syracuse, Colorado, right after Memphis and UNLV. And there's Army. This one here may be filled with more what you would call blue bloods that I've ever seen in the top 25 poll.
Well, I mean, the way the season finished, it actually made people have to think about what they were doing. Like this was, he really had to think about it. And, congratulations to Lane Kiffin on having a big blowout bowl win. Otherwise, I think there might have been some Rider backlash against you. You might have finished behind Illinois there.
They may have finished out of the top 100. Yeah.
But look, I still think the one that just sticks out to me a little bit there is, man, BYU is still not getting any love after they just beat the Heisman Trophy winner and the first or second pick in the draft like a drum in the bowl game when everybody, that was a game that everybody played in. This wasn't an opt-out game. You might want to give them a little bit more love than that, but I guess being in 12 when they didn't make the playoff, that's the only one that sticks in my craw a little bit. But, yeah, this is pretty fair. Shehan just mentioned South Carolina. That's a team that with Lenora Sellers coming back and Shane Beamer doing some work in the portal and his recruiting going up is going to see a lot of love. And, Colorado at 25 was, about 100 spots over where they would have been a year ago. So nice jump for
They dropped because of the bowl loss. They dropped 5. BYU moved up 4. They were 17th. That's still not probably high enough, but that was one of the teams that probably moved up the most.
But when you look and see right there at the end, Army, UNLV, and Memphis all in it. Of course, Boise State. You got 4 G5 teams in it, and it wasn't just a let's rearrange this based on the bowl season of the Power 5. I like it. I mean, it's good.
Yeah, I really don't ever pay much attention to the end of season poll. I kind of just let the national championship speak for itself. I don't get too caught up in this right here, but I understand for the program's purposes and streaks and momentum and things like that, why this is a big poll. So to see, Memphis and UNLV, as you mentioned, just a couple of the schools that maybe we don't typically see here, right there in the mix, or some that we haven't seen maybe be as high as they are or as much involved as they are, is pretty cool. From the SMUs and it's Indiana. That one right there is a definite outlier compared to recent years. So, yeah, there's some interesting teams in here, and certainly it's not just let's take the 20 most popular teams and fill them in at various spots. I'll be honest with you, though, I don't know how different it is from the end of last year's. Honestly, it could be pretty similar, and maybe we're just taking more note of it. Maybe it's not. Maybe it is drastically different, but I do think it's encouraging to see that people are, not just making it all about the big brands.
Last year's final AP Top 25 poll, I don't see a single – I want to make sure I go through this. I don't see a single – SMU is the only team that would have been considered a non-Power 4 school.
Yeah. So, that's good, obviously, to give those schools more love and give them more shine. But I think more than giving them things is they went out and earned it.
No, that's it, yeah.
Exactly. So, that's great that that's being rewarded with some rub there in the final top 25, because that is a big deal. That is a big deal for schools. I know what I just said about I don't pay attention to it, but I'm just saying me personally. But I do totally get where, as a program, that matters, and as fans, that matters, and all of that, especially fans of UNLV who aren't accustomed to seeing that, or Army who aren't accustomed to seeing that. That's cool, and yeah, that right there pretty much tells you the tale, all the highlights, and even some lowlights of this college football season. I think that graphic right there kind of sums it all up, as it should, because it's the final top 25.
All right, so in the end, could you put that up one more time, Garrett, if you don't mind? In the end, you had the Big 12 with 7, 13, 15, and then also Colorado at 25. I thought I missed one of the school, but that's a pretty good chunk. I know there's a cough button. But so good for a lot of those teams for hanging around and also making the move with Army at 21. Despite losing that game to Navy, they had a great, great run this year. Now, do you guys know what program? Now, remember, there are some presidents that have had more than one term. And some presidents that have had, how many presidents had more than two? One? Roosevelt? 2 terms?
One, yeah. Roosevelt
Okay.
was elected to 4, but he died. So, yeah. And then they changed the rule.
Give me a president. Now, I'll tell you, what school in college football had the most wins during their presidency?
Nixon.
Nixon was Nebraska and Penn State, 51.
Okay.
Of course, his got cut a little short, too.
Eisenhower.
Ole Miss, 71.
Kennedy.
John F. Kennedy, Alabama and Texas, 28. Unfortunately, that was a short run for him.
Herbert Hoover.
Hoover, USC, 38.
Okay.
How about
Jimmy Carter?
Jimmy Carter, Alabama had 44 in the late 70s.
Obama, Trump, and Biden would be all about Alabama.
Ran that Obama train. 100 wins during that time.
I would say Obama, Trump, Biden would all be Alabama, wouldn't they?
Trump was Clemson and Alabama, 51, because that was part of when Clemson made their run. Biden, Georgia had 53. Clinton, Nebraska, 91. George W. Bush, Boise State, Oklahoma, and USC had 88.
Okay,
so
interesting.
Just an interesting note.
Chester A. Arthur.
A. Arthur, Yale and Princeton with 30.
Martin Van Buren.
Van Buren.
No football.
No, he's not on.
Yeah, no
football. That's no football. Ulysses S. Grant, 12. That was the first president. They had 12 wins during his presidency.
That was another thing I saw of. They scheduled it on Inauguration Day.
Yeah.
And I was like, did that really affect you watching it at night? Maybe it did for some people because you're more of a political fan or something. But I saw that as another reason why they need to change the dates and fix the calendar for college football, which, the calendar as a whole is just a big old mess. No matter what you're talking about, national championship, transfers, whatever the case may be.
It's only going to happen once every 4 years. And if you figure out the calendar. If they figure out the calendar in the next two, it won't happen the next.
Let me ask you this: what could they have done? Like, here's where I was kind of getting at earlier. So, I don't read Twitter hardly at all. Like, if I average 3 hours a day, it is 3 to 6 on here.
That's
okay.
And
like that's 99% of my time on social media.
Okay.
Legitimately, is these 3 hours. But as I'm watching along with the game last night, I'm probably bored like a lot of other people. I'm looking around and I'm curious what the temperature is because I'm anticipating. See, this is why this shouldn't be this way or that shouldn't be this way. And there was some of that, but I saw a lot of the conversation was about, well, Texas-Ohio State was the real national championship game, and they screwed up the seeding and this and that and all that. Like, what could you do differently, though? Like, Notre Dame just beat 3 straight opponents that are all, like, top 5. I mean, top 10 at worst. And Ohio State's done the same thing. Like, there's not a perfect solution because I think, like, in the NFL, like, there's 32 teams and that's it, and everybody, like, it's a lot more put together because they actually have rules. College football, there's no rules basically, and there's like 1,000 teams, and like the entire country is involved to some extent. Yeah. It's way more tribal and broken down, so you'll never make everybody happy. But like, honest to God, I was sitting there, I was like, what could you possibly do? Like, so the dates are wrong, the field is wrong, the seating is wrong,
the officiating is wrong. The
officiating's wrong. Like, and that's what I talked about earlier. Like, are you a college football fan?
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying it's perfect, but I'm asking the question not because I think it's perfect, because I don't. I think the portal's a mess. I think the officiating, absolutely 100% at the top of the list would be nationalized officiating. But what could you do differently to make this more exciting? Because I feel like there's a lot of people out there that think that all of these games are supposed to be nail-biter, down-to-the-wire type games, and when they're not, it's like, this sucks. We're not watching this anymore.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, look, I've watched every single, and I know a lot of people have, but if you've watched every single NFL playoff game, which I have, and every single CFP game, I mean, some are good, some are medium, some are bad.
Yeah.
Like, that's just how sports goes.
And I'm not defending the brand here, by the way, either.
You could also go to the Major League Baseball playoffs. Like, Garrett watches every hockey series there are, and there's no better postseason in sports than the Stanley Cup playoffs. It's wild. It goes, and guess what? There are series that
go 4-0.
That go 4-0, and every game is 3-0 or worse. Like, it's just a blowout. And sometimes those series are the lowest seed blowing out the team that dominated all year long. So again,
nothing's perfect.
Nothing's perfect.
It's why they play.
The tweaks there are some major tweaks they have to make. The minor things, like the calendar in college football, is a major thing.
Let's reset this to where that's the thing. I don't want to complain about people complaining, but what are the things that could change?
The things that are, I think the biggest thing is moving off of traditions that now fly in the face of this. So, look, Army-Navy needs to be alone at its time, but alone the whole weekend, I think you need to kind of maybe move off of that. And I know that that's a tradition, but that needs to have some reverence to it, but we're in a new reality. The bowl games need to be moved off of in the way that they've been before, because you've got people spending $19,000 to go and follow teams around.
Well, that's $19,000 for somebody who's a parent at Notre Dame.
But okay,
of a player,
but that's not sustainable for the fans. If you really want good atmospheres, plus the more you see games on campus, the more fans are going to want games on campus. So I think that's eventually going to change. And the calendar is a big one. Like, figuring out a calendar that keeps you away from the NFL, that keeps you less deep into January, more close to January 1st. All of that would be great. And there's a way to do it. You just have to move off of some traditional things that you're doing. One of the things that would help the calendar out that doesn't even happen near it is getting rid of spring football altogether and doing OTAs.
Chris Kleiman told us during Big 12 Media Days,
makes
go
way
OTAs
more sense
during June.
Go to OTAs May and June like the NFL does, and you can have more days because you probably need more time than NFL players do, but you could still have more days. Work that out.
The reason he said that was because of the portal. That you would not waste your spring in February, March, or April, and sometimes even May. You would in June know who your roster is, even with a few that depart. You know who you have. You're not wasting 3 or 4 weeks of practices, and then half the team is gone by the end of the summer.
Part of the reason that a lot of these schools want to keep the spring game is because they consider that like a big event. But the problem is there's only about 9 spring games in the country that really draw people.
Yep.
And it's just because it's become such a thing there, and they've always done well. But name me a school over the last couple years that's canceled their spring game for one reason or the other that their fans are like, no, we riot. They don't care.
Hell, I got ticked off when Baylor actually kept theirs. Like, we're moving to the indoor, you guys. I'm like, damn, I wish you would have canceled it. Like, I was hoping the rain was going to wash this bad boy out, honestly. But we had to go to the indoor and watch this thing now. Like, I mean, that's kind of where spring games are in my mind at this point.
Yeah, you're right, Paul. There's Nebraska with what they do. That's a big deal. Again, there are 5 or 6 other programs that loaded up.
I just don't feel like I watch any other championship game, whether they're a blowout or not. And like I said, I'm not like the defender. I think there's a lot of things college football can do better. I'm still, though, a massive fan. I just feel like I saw a lot of last night of, well, it's too late into the season. The season lasts too long. And what else did I see? The season lasts too long. That's what they get for trying to go this deep against the NFL playoffs. And I'm like, if this game was competitive, none of this would be relevant. Like, the only reason we're complaining about this is because this game is boring. Because otherwise, I don't feel like it would be like if that game was 31-30 double over. If that was Texas-Ohio State last night, the reactions wouldn't be played too late into January, competing against the NFL playoffs, and like all of the different things that I saw. So that's why I asked the question of what is top of mind and what do you tweak. And the damn thing of it is if you're an anti-expansion guy, they're definitely expanding again. Like they're not going to less than 12. They're not even probably staying at 12 for more than one more year. So, yeah, they need to figure some things out with the calendar and the scheduling and the NFL. And that's why that story yesterday, y'all kind of brushed it off, but like them and talking with the NFL of like, it's not so much them standing their ground, but like maybe you need to like have a conversation where it's better for you in the long run if you don't try and test that.
I hope that they do. I just don't know what the NFL's going to do for them.
Tell
them don't schedule multiple games on our Saturday. Schedule them on Friday night.
You know, and if you're the NFL, you're Greg Sankey. Why would I want to do that?
Sankey.
I don't have to.
Yeah.
No, what I'm saying is you have that kind of arrogance. Why do I have to do that?
Yeah.
All they have to do is print out this year's ratings and go, see,
the
we
NFL
told you.
season used to take over Saturdays the last 2 weekends in December. The last 2. And now it's not. It seems like it's even deeper earlier in December. Am I right?
No, yeah. Look, if you want to talk about reverence for the Army-Navy game, the NFL doesn't because they have a game right after it. So, again, if you want to figure this thing out, like Friday night's going to have to maybe be a bit of a refuge for you, and that means doing some things that you have to, like, we're already non-traditional with a 12-team playoff. So
tradition's out the window at this point, pal.
What tradition, like, let's look at what traditions you can hold on to reasonably and what traditions are just getting in the way. And look, the grift of these bowl games, especially the New Year's Six, like that is getting in the way of making this thing easier to deal with, especially when one of them has to have things a certain way. Like, the parade has to end, the sun has to set, and the ball gets kicked off. Like, there's no wiggle room on that at all because they want to have it their way. Now, in the next contract, they don't have as much power, so that was a temporary thing. And if they would get rid of those altogether and just do home sites until you get to the championship game.
No, I think you could do semifinals.
I think that's even a waste of time too.
Okay, well, one of the things, and listen, I will, just because of all of us, the way we feel about Army-Navy, I saw some of the smoke about playing that game in week 0. I don't know. I'm not going to say, no, you can't do that. I love that game, the tradition, the pageantry, but they have to be careful not to become the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, I don't like it at the beginning of the year because there's something to be said for the cadets and everybody wearing their trench coats
and it's
like
snowing.
Steamy breath and like all of that. Like that part of it is part of the elements. But I am also Mr. The Rose Bowl's not the end all be all, and your sunset shouldn't dictate college football as a whole. So I'm open-minded to anything. Here's what I'm open-minded to: anything that makes it better.
Yeah.
And so as long as we don't just like toss tradition to the wayside entirely, I do think there's some things that are worth preserving or holding on to some degree. I wouldn't like go lay down in the middle of the street over Army-Navy being moved. But, yeah, I don't think it has to be all by its lonesome, stand alone. But there is the conflict with them if they're involved in the playoff. And so, that, you can't. Something does have to change there.
It's a tremendous, huge moneymaker for CBS. And
yeah, and the TV networks are running all this. Yeah, clearly.
And Army-Navy on CBS is not a part of the college football playoff, so they're going to be a little bit bristled. Their neck on the back, the hair on the back of their neck. I think everyone get in a room and.
Did y'all feel like the season went on too long?
All right, there was a comment in the chat room about that. I think it's just because of a fan of a team that wasn't very good.
I know last year felt like it went on forever for people covering Baylor, so I get it.
My season ended.
A year ago, December.
Exactly. That's when it ended. But how
can you feel that way if you're a college fan?
I think it went on. There's too longs. There were not too many games in my estimation. You can't give me too many games because of the way I feel about college football. It did go on too long as far as the actual physical calendar. That was too long to me. Okay. Give me the same amount of things and then take out.
All right.
Take 2 or 3 weeks.
Take out the spacing that doesn't need to be there.
You asked the question, did it go too long? Did it go too long for you?
I mean, not for me, but I just saw that comment quite a bit, and that's, and I was kind of fishing for just sort of a feel on last night and just the season ending and kind of where we are. I know that there was going to be a boatload of discussion points, and I've brought up a bunch of them that were already in play before last night, but certainly just reinforced in some cases last night, whether it's the seeding or just the length of the season and how late they're playing into the new year and all of those types of things. But for me personally, no. It didn't go on too long, but I do see where there is room to get as much juice. You don't need as big of a can with so much empty space. You can shrink the can a little bit and to still have as much soda. You know what I mean? I think that's where college football sort of is where they need to shrink the can probably a little bit, but I'm not adamant about that in any way. I just have seen that quite a bit.
I tried, and this is without looking at the dates, and I'm looking at the dates because we just had the championship game. You had one quarterfinal round game on New Year's Eve. You had 2 games on New Year's Day, and then had a game on the 2nd, which I think was the Notre Dame game. Let's see here. The game on the 2nd was Notre Dame, Georgia. All right, so you had those days. Then you had a week to the 9th. All right, that's fair. If you played on the 31st, you got an extra day or two. Then you had the 20th.
And I do think some of the space in between the semis and the national championship is where you could cut some days off. You don't need it to be as long as it is. So that's very fair.
Yeah, the 9th and 10th were the semis, and then January 20th. That's I'm not saying you have long breaks to even
10
get to
days.
That can kind of you're not going to lose the regular diehard college football fan, but are you going to lose people who don't know when you're playing?
You could cut off 3 days at different parts of the season and then get back to probably where you need to be.
Well, it brings me full circle to kind of where I started off here because I would love to have watched that on Friday night. I don't know about you guys. I would have absolutely loved to have been able to watch that. And I know the NFL playoffs are right after.
Last night on Friday. Yeah, absolutely.
I would much rather watch that on a Friday night and have it all to its lonesome. And then, the NFL playoffs start the next day. But, I mean, the national championship game happened last night, and we're already moving on to 2025. And we're it's not like we're sitting here really stewing. And I'm holding this actually focusing on 2024 together for the moment.
Grabbing onto it
with this segment, because otherwise we're already talking about Aaron Nolan's and so I don't feel like you're really gaining anything by being on Monday and being all standalone, so to speak. So I don't like the Monday night.
I thought it was bad. And I said this yesterday. I don't know if you guys reacted to it. I thought even though there's no NFL games, all of the talk was still mostly about the semifinals in the conference.
Well, that's where I want to circle all the way back around to because I brought up the changes that I've seen people bring up and the changes that are in my head as well. And we're saying this not because we hate college football, because we're fans and there's ways that it can be better. And maybe we're not right. Maybe the timing for certain things is absolutely perfect. I'm open-minded enough to be open-minded to all of that. That's why we're just kind of spinning tires here talking about this. But I saw a lot of discussion as well on the lack of buildup and the lack of hype rolling into this game. And so my question is, how do you change that? Because I feel like if we had been talking about it into Friday night, that would have felt important on Friday night. We would have rushed home and been there. But I do feel like yesterday I was kind of like, oh, yeah, the national championship game's on. Now, you don't feel that way if you're Notre Dame or Ohio State fans, obviously. But it did feel like there was not the kind of oomph that there should have been for that game.
Well, yeah.
And it didn't help when, after one quarter, it became the Ohio State show and they turned it into a blowout. Like, so barring it being a competitive game, which you cannot guarantee, what could you do to the national championship to make it feel more important than it seemingly felt last night?
I got emails because of the college football playoff, and, you know, for the media, we played some of the interviews. That was on Media Day was on Saturday. Did anyone other than those covering those two teams even know that existed, or you're a national media member covering college football?
I was watching the NFL playoffs.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, okay. And I went later on and broke down some of the audio clips because I thought, we needed to have something on Monday. Then you had the coaches on Sunday, completely overshadowed by that. And then you wake up on Monday morning, everybody's talking about the NFL games, whether it's the Chiefs again or whoever. And so I think that, that's a 2.5-day, 3-day period where no matter what was going on last night, for one night in Atlanta, where it was like, oh, yeah, by the way, they're playing the championship game on Monday.
Okay, here's the other thing. Craig has the great point about Friday. One of the things that, look, the Super Bowl is a fantastic event, but people talk about it every year. Make the Monday after the Super Bowl a national holiday.
Please, Trump, can we please do that? It's overdue. Let's do that, please.
Like, make that a national holiday because it is the least productive day of work ever.
And I just think it'd be cool, man.
It'd be cool, yes.
Yeah.
Let's celebrate the biggest event of our year every year, which is the Super Bowl. Let's do that. Believe me, even sports fans are like, you telling me I'm making a Monday off? All right, great. I like football now. I really hope Travis and Taylor make it. Like that'll be what they do. And college football could do that by putting this game on Friday night to where, you don't have to worry about, you might have to worry about inauguration of January 20th, in a 4-year period falls on a Friday, but you have a Friday night, people can have parties, like it'd be great for the rest, like whatever it is, people will celebrate around it more than they would on a Monday night after a weekend.
After they've already been NFL'd out for 3 days or 2 days. And so, that's just another thing that I saw quite a bit, and that's what I wanted to toss out there to everybody is your thoughts on just the timing of it, the length of it. Like, I think all of it's for review. I also know the playoffs not getting smaller, like we said at the very beginning. So what can they feasibly do to make it better? Or is it even a matter of getting better in some cases, or people just need to stop complaining about every little thing because they're just looking for complaints? I think there's probably some of that, but I do think, like, legitimately, there was not a lot of buzz because you had the entire weekend where the NFL took over and basically killed all of your momentum heading into last night. And then when the game isn't entertaining enough for the casual fan, then, like, you're toast. And I don't know what the ratings turned out to be. That's 2 really huge programs, so I'm sure they still had, their 10+ million or whatever, but I am curious to see that when that eventually drops. And I have felt no matter what the size of the playoff field has been or what the status of the transfer portal has been or no matter what the thing is, I've never liked the Monday Night National Championship. I've not liked that at all. And so that's at the top of my list of things I would be all for changing up. And I don't know how feasible that is.
I don't know if the networks would want it on Friday.
And that's where we come back to
it would open up more eyeballs because they're not distracted from
and that's the problem is we come back to, well, who's actually calling the shots? It's not people like us or people who do similar to us. It's the TV networks that, what's the best night for the 18 to 34 demographic? And Monday nights.
By the way, Justin Credible, great name on
former
the chat
ECW
room.
wrestler, yeah.
Let's see. He said, I haven't watched a college national championship game in 10 years. I stopped caring. Please tell me why. In the chat, why? You got tired of the game. You didn't like something about college football. But I'm curious because I'm curious. I'm a sports fan, and I don't watch the Daytona 500 or the Indianapolis 500 or the Preakness, et cetera, like I used to. But if it's something that's on and I'm home, I'm going to watch it. I will try to figure out a way to be able to watch it. And that's so I don't. If you're a football fan, if they play Friday, the NFL's not a distraction. It's not.
Well, I guess you get washed out by the next day, but it's like, what's the difference? You're already washed out, and there's not an NFL game today, and you've already been washed out. So why at least, like, big old stage on Friday night, and I'm not bound to this, by the way. I think the Monday night thing sucks. I do. Yeah. I think that kills a lot of the momentum. As you said, the coaches are doing press conferences. Nobody knows about them other than their hardcore fans that pay attention to press conferences because the NFL's on both those days. So I don't think there's any date where you're going to, play and then you get all the attention because the media traditionally doesn't cover college football that way anyways. We're one of the few that's now grown immensely since we started. I would love to know how many shows similar have started since we started with a few other people 3 years ago, but it's still not to the level of that type of media where it's going to cross over nationally and hang around. So if it's not going to matter either way, yeah, I think the better, more entertaining, fun spot, the best way to watch it as college football fans would be probably on a Friday night rather than a Monday, but I don't know. That's why I'm just kind of throwing things out there because it's time to review. We just had a season in. It's what could be better? What are some of the issues?
I did watch the Pat McAfee broadcast, and I was working on some things.
What did you think of that, by the way? Because I have my own thoughts.
Well, I there's so many ways to watch it. There's now almost too many ways. It gets me confused. But I started watching that only because it happened to be on YouTube TV. That's what I had on, and I also had it on regular TV. But I enjoyed it. It was different, but I couldn't watch a lot of that.
Yeah, that's where I am.
I had the game on and I just had the sound down and was doing things to watch the game. I don't sit in front of the TV anymore and watch anything for 3 consecutive hours. No game, no matter if it's Nebraska, Washington, or whoever else.
I think the other thing, TV networks have these, somewhat now antiquated things about how people don't watch TV the same way. You made a great point. Nobody watches TV the same way that they used to anymore.
No.
And the only thing that's appointment viewing is live events like sports. So saying, well, Monday night, historically, no. Get out anything that happened before Netflix became a thing, throw those numbers out because they're irrelevant now. There's way more competition in the market for everything, including the NFL. Even though it dominates, there's a lot more competition in the market. So what do? You create appointment viewing. You're not going to lose so many people, it's going to change your advertising dollar moving to Friday night from Monday. You're not going to. Bottom line.
Well, I don't know that.
I do.
I don't know that because then why would they not?
Because, again, it's just what they've done.
I think a TV network would do anything possible to move it to where they're going to have more eyeballs so they can make more money.
But what's the first thing you told me when we started working together? How we've always done it gets you beat.
We're not going to work together very long.
No. How you've always done it gets you beat, right?
All right, let's call Bob Thompson, get him on the phone line. Why are the national championship game played on it?
I did, though. You're right. Whatever you used to do, that doesn't mean we're going to keep doing it. And you got to – but, Craig, you're hanging on. And you got off the radar coming up, but I can see what you're doing. You're hanging on the leg is dragging you through the end of the football season because it's here in certain ways.
No, I'm just doing what we should do, and is actually take a moment to appreciate the season and not start flipping and going to the preseason top 25 on January 21st. It's going to flip 17 million ways between now and then, and actually talk about what happened and not what might happen. And so last night, there was a lot of conversations going on, especially as that game got dull in the middle, and a lot of complaining or calls for tweaking and things like that. And so we've got our audience or people who watch this after the fact or whatever, and a lot of them college football fans. So I'm throwing a lot of stuff out there to kind of gauge and see what's up.
Here's Justin Credible for the last time on why he doesn't watch. I said, is it because you don't have a favorite team or you were turned off? I really don't know. Perhaps my attention span is way too gone by that Monday.
Yeah,
in fact, I completely forgot the national championship game was on. I don't feel like going out on Monday.
The short attention span, that's definitely something that people are grappling with, and that's only going to get worse and worse. That's going to be – I think it already probably is very problematic. We just don't know how problematic that is. But that's all of us are being tuned differently than we were previously. And I do think with the Monday night, that's also where you lose a lot of your lead-in. We just said, what were the couple days before build-up, the coaches' press conferences that nobody watched because we're all watching the NFL or we're just out on the weekend? And so, yeah, there was not a lot of buzz going into this game. And it wasn't for the lack of, like, I bet if it was TCU's year, we'd go, well, because TCU's in here, you got to have two big teams. It doesn't get bigger than Ohio State Notre Dame. So it wasn't the teams. It wasn't that, it's going to be a blowout.
Nerf saying Friday is the lowest viewed night of the week in television.
Well, there you go. It all goes back to TV networks.
But historically it is. But have they ever done, like, okay, Friday's the lowest viewed night in television. How often have they had the college football national championship on a Friday night? 0.0 times. They haven't.
I don't know.
Like, so you're talking about, that's why they don't put sitcoms on Friday night, right? But now there's hardly any of those.
You're talking. I'm just.
Well, I guess there was TGIF.
Has New Year's Day ever been on a Friday?
I mean,
because that would be.
I mean, it is every 6 years.
That's what I'm saying. So they would have games on Friday night. But
so again, I think that they're crossing their metrics up. Now, look, Bob Thompson, Pat Crakes, who we have on, and we should get him on to answer this question.
I am going to text him about it.
But, ask him about it. But I think – one of the smartest things I think women's basketball ever did was move their title game to Tuesday night.
Pull that quote right there. Pull that exact quote. One of the smartest things Paul said women's basketball ever did. Go ahead.
One of the smartest things they ever did was move off of the Sunday before and move it to the Tuesday after, in my opinion. Or move from the Tuesday after to the Sunday before. It's the same thing.
You watch it?
I've watched the women's national championship many times.
We've covered it.
Yeah. I mean, look, I don't have to, I don't love everything.
Once the men's championship game is played on Monday night, basketball season, over. College basketball
but they used to play that on Tuesday.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And you're like, well, why, let them have their day. And, nothing's happened. A great thing just happened on Saturday in the Final Four. Another big thing's going to happen on Monday in the championship game. And I don't even totally love that that's on Monday, but it's kind of always been that way. And that's how that tournament works. But if when they put it on Sunday, then yeah, I'll watch it. Why not? I'm in the basketball mode. Let's watch as much basketball as I can.
Yeah, well, part of the problem is that they're not, like we say, going by the fans. They're going by what a TV executive feels sells the most commercials. So that's why we get Monday night as opposed to what would probably be a better night. So that answers that. But I do think that maybe they get a bigger number, but I don't know if they get the build-up that they want because I felt zero build-up heading into that game last night.
None.
And that it wasn't for a lack of trying. I mean, like I said, if they had played that game on Friday, I feel like we would have built that SOB up right to the point of where it needed to launch on its own. But then you add 2 more days of just nothingness and everybody talking about Mahomes or Jaden Daniels or whoever. And then, by the way, Notre Dame, Ohio State's tonight for the entire championship.
I asked Bob Thompson from his history, sports or otherwise, is Friday night the worst night for eyeballs? And we'll see if Bob, he will respond, and we'll ask him. I'll give you the answer from what I heard, what I hear from him. Okay. When we come back off the radar, in the 5 o'clock hour, we will have John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist. He'll join us too. Garrett Ross running the mothership. Jack McKenzie here, who is the mothership. Is that right, Paul? And also Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak.
Sure.
Please, tonight at 10:30, 365 Sports tonight on the CW. If you have not hit the like button, don't have to, but if you want to, great. And then, of course,
you do have to. Okay. You do have to hit the like button. It's a rule.
Who is it? Conundrum or someone who got upset with me one time go, the like button doesn't mean anything, but the subscribe button does.
Yeah, no, the like button really does.
Yeah, so
believe me,
do.
I've sat in many a very boring conference call telling me how to do these things.
There's a reason why every single person says it's for a reason, because it does matter.
Maybe I can do it more like most influencers do. Hold on, let me put my hood on.
Smash that like, bro.
Yo, bud, look, I guess this is not working at all. Yo, look, smash that like, make sure you share it. Follow me on DubDub2. My profile name is P Squiggy,
P Squiggy. Wow, we just crossed over 200,000 followers just in the last 5 seconds. That's it's all about the presentation.
Mike in Ohio, I hope you guys and everyone's staying warm. It's been a beautiful day here. It's been cold but beautiful. In Northeast Ohio, 0 degrees with minus 14 wind chill today. So
sunbathing day.
Yeah, it's been gorgeous here. Actually, sunny and not much wind. It's been gorgeous.
We had some snow flurries.
Very
few.
Yeah.
If you drove around in the north, you would look like, they had snow 3 weeks ago.
Yeah,
that's what it looks like.
Exactly. When we come back, Craig and Off the Radar. Much more to get to. We do appreciate your time. I'm David Smoak. This is 365 Sports. Is this Baylor alumni?
Sure.
Okay, Baylor. Let's do Don's. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center on Valley Mills in Waco. No, the reason I said that is we're like 2 hours into the show, and we've taken like one commercial break. And thanks to Joshua and Cheyenne, they have a 48-foot walk-in humidor with Cohiba, Padron, Rocky Patel, Macanudo, Artur Fuente, unbelievable brands of cigar. In the back right corner, there's a wall of Texas brand or Texas businesses who have cigars, companies, including those who have served in the military that are doing that too. It's a fantastic tribute Joshua and Cheyenne have given former military soldiers a chance to sell their product and get eyeballs in front of their product. Also, VitaDreams, the CBD, take at night, helps you fall asleep pretty quickly. And I've learned that it kind of depends on what's going on. Do I want to take a half a gummy or two? And you get to know that a little bit. And then, yes, for bad days, if you have chronic pain, really bad pain, they have a gummy for bad days. It's a little bit more powerful that maybe gets you through some of the pain in your shoulder, your knee, or hip, whatever it is. Great people. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center between Richland Drive, Valley Mills, and Waco.
It's the first of the year. It's the first month of the year. How many times have you said, man, I got to start working out? I need to get back in shape or get fit. Need to drop a few pounds. It happens every year, and how many times every year the month of January rolls by, and the next thing you know, you really haven't done much. It's almost like the American way, right? But how about now? Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness has set up a fitness bingo. Sweat, play, and win. Reach your goals. There are 5 columns, top to bottom. And here are just some of those. This is where you check it off as you go. Take an indoor cycling class, attend a yoga class, walk 10,000 steps in a day, attend a bar class, complete a 2-minute plank, do 100 push-ups in one day, run a couple of miles on the treadmill. At least try. Do 50 squats in a single session, work out with a partner, drink 2 liters of water per day for a week. Try a group fitness class you've never done before. Stretch for 15 minutes. Do any kind of outdoor workout. Spend 15 minutes in the sauna after a workout. Do a workout with dumbbells. Take a body shaping class. There are so many different parts of this fitness bingo. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
Welcome back. Welcome in. Off the Radar here on 365 Sports. Hit that like and subscribe button. We'd appreciate that. But here in this segment, twice a week, we take a look at a grab bag, as I call it, of stories, depending on just kind of what's out there in the headlines and in the ether. And sometimes that mixes college football in, sometimes it doesn't, but just an opportunity to kind of just look at some different stuff that's it's ongoing. And I did actually want to start off with one college football note before we kind of move away from that. And you never mentioned this. I think you mentioned it maybe in passing. But with that win last night, Ohio State has now won 9 national championships. Buckeyes claiming number 9 now puts them into a tie all time. And the thing with college football that we're never going to get to is having like a streamlined real national championship list. You guys know this, right? I mean, there's schools that claim.
Oh, yeah. No, there's
there's schools that don't. And there's some polls that are credited here and then maybe not by others here. So the whole how many national championships do you have is kind of a debate for some schools anyways. But for Ohio State, that is officially for them number 9. 1942, their first. 1954, 57, 61, 68, 70, and then, man, you thought the heat on Ryan Day was bad. How about not winning a national title from 1970 all the way to 2002? Mm-hmm. Lucky social media did not exist.
Is that the team that beat Miami?
Yes.
Yeah.
That shouldn't have. Yes. BS pass interference call. No, I was just kidding. That is that game, though. That's how people remember that game, unless you're an Ohio State fan, probably. But, yeah, you had that drought of 32 years. So imagine if Twitter was around in, like, the 80s and 90s and Ohio State was on a 2-decade drought of national championship wins. But 2002, 2014, and then it took 10 years to get to just this one. So we kind of have some idea of what it's like in the social media era. And we saw Ryan Day with his head basically almost permanently glued to a chopping block. If he had not won last night, it would have been on the chopping block for a lot of people. But, yeah, that's national championship number 9, their first in 10 years, their third since 2002, and their third since all the way back to 1970. So I just found that kind of interesting. That puts them into a tie all-time with Pittsburgh, with 9 national championships. Who were you going to say? You thought it was going to be somebody else.
No, I know who's won. It's Alabama, right?
Well, we're not getting there yet.
Oh, okay. 9, Pittsburgh. God dang.
Well, Pittsburgh's
was
in
those schools in the 40s and 50s, and they rolled up a lot. You know.
Well, if you were to do like the post-World War II list, Pittsburgh's at the very bottom of the list.
They have won in 1977 with Tony Dorsett.
Pittsburgh won in 1915, 1916, 1918, 29, 31, 34, 36, 37. That's all their titles, and then 76. And that 76 is the only one since 1937. So that's why you see Pittsburgh's 9 national titles, and you kind of side-eye it a little bit. You're like, wait a second. They don't have the same amount as Ohio State. And it's like, yeah, they technically do.
Yeah.
Again, and I don't know how many of these might be, you know, they selected the UPI and decided, we're going to count that like an Auburn or A&M do.
No, yeah, and this is from my time. The Associated Press and UPI were the two teams. That was the national championship. Then the UPI became the coaches poll, I think.
Yeah. But there's been others, and you see others like
National
Auburn.
Football Foundation and
that somehow
Dunkel Index.
50 years afterwards, they're like, no, wait, that counts now. We got to put it on the side of the stadium. Mm-hmm. So anyways, Ohio State now tied with Pittsburgh. The only programs with more, you've got USC and Notre Dame had an opportunity to jump up to a different level, but they remain where they are without a national title since 1988. And they had their fair share of a trio of pre-World War II titles as well. But at 11 national titles, 2 ahead of Ohio State now, you have Notre Dame and USC. At 12 national titles, you have Michigan. At 18, you have Alabama. And then that's when you get into the conversation about Ivy League national championships and who was actually playing in pre-World War II and all those things, because technically the most national championships,
is
1 and 2,
right?
Is Princeton with 28, followed by Yale with 27. Those are technically, but if you strip that away for the more concise, like modern-day argument, Alabama is number 1 with 18 national titles. But, yeah, Ohio State now halfway there with 9, so that puts them behind Princeton, Yale, Bama, Michigan, Notre Dame, and USC.
I'm going to call BS on some of Alabama's 18.
Go right ahead.
I would push, I'm carrying out pushback on Princeton and Yale. I want to know how many of those national titles were won when they used to agree on rules before the game. So
Let me put it this way.
the coaches would meet and go, Are we allowing forward passes today? How much are touchdowns worth? Is eye gouging a penalty, kind of a thing?
So of the 45 national championships between those two, 28 and 27, that'd be 55, right? Mm-hmm. So of the 55 national championships that Princeton and Yale claim, only one has occurred since 1935.
Yeah, it doesn't mean they didn't win it. Because, my God, Jesse Owens won gold medals. And my God, he also was one of the first ever black athletes to finally run in the Olympic Games. But it's like if Florida State, if Florida State had won a national title in 1945 when they don't even think they had a school, had they won a national title, let's say the AP, and they beat Harvard, would you count it?
Yeah.
Well, let me put it this way. Princeton's 1869 national championship that counts, they went 1-1 that year.
Hey.
They didn't even go unbeaten in a 2-game schedule, and they claimed the national championship because there's like 3 teams.
Yeah.
So that's why there's a whole conversation about, yes, those technically count, but it's also why a lot of people quote post-World War II as modern college football, because it does get goofy, and you're like, oh, wait, y'all played 2 games the entire season. Ohio State just finished, their 16th game and just ran through 4 top 10 teams, and you played 2 teams and didn't even win both games, and you're a national champion. So those are pretty goofy. So I kind of tend to stay with the modern national titles for that reason. But you're right, Alabama, you can side-eye a few of those. And there was a run, though, in the 2000s when the SEC, I feel like, started to kind of really get their oomph about them, where all of a sudden it became very commonplace, and I already alluded to a couple of the teams that did this, but it became kind of commonplace for teams to start sneaking national titles onto their official record books.
Yep.
And Auburn absolutely did it, and A&M absolutely did it.
Yep.
And there was probably others I'm not thinking of. So, yeah, I'm sure Alabama's claiming some that maybe aren't, but regardless, they're number one modern day.
I know that I've researched this before. Nebraska won it in 70. Split it with Texas, because that's back when they had the 2 polls. You can win a national title and lose your bowl game. They used to have, one of the polls was, if you were number 1 when the regular season ended and lost your bowl game, you would still be considered a national champion.
So let's do modern day. Starting at number 1, I'm going to do the top 5 all the way to Ohio State. It's Bama, it's Michigan, it's Notre Dame, it's USC, it's Ohio State.
Okay.
And then Pittsburgh's technically tied with Ohio State. Or not, they are. So however you want to do that. And I'll move on from this, but take away the private schools, because Harvard has 7 national titles, even though the latest one was in 1919. So the next modern day level programs that would be right behind Ohio State, who they've now separated by another game from, any guesses of who would be in that 7-8 range?
What, 7 or 8 range?
Because... Well, I don't want.
There's
two teams that have 7 that are right behind. Or excuse me.
Have you mentioned Michigan yet?
Yeah, they were
12.
number 2.
Okay, all right. Golly.
So now Ohio State gained a game on both Minnesota, who is another program that hasn't won one in a long time. It was 1960 when they won their 7th national title. But Oklahoma has 7 as well, and they've seen Ohio State
just
past them.
Boat race them.
Past them with 3 national titles since their last one in 2000. So, yeah, Oklahoma 7, Minnesota 7. Then you get to Ohio State in that top 5 that I mentioned. But that's where we are with national titles.
We need to keep going.
Well, because we've got time to
we need to keep
talk
going.
about
We
other
got to keep
so
going.
So we're just the ones that have 3?
3 or more.
3 or more? No.
There's quite a few of those, especially if you count the old schools.
No, take away the old schools.
3 or more.
It's amazing what you said, though, how long Ohio State's drought was from the 1970 to 90. What was the year? Till they won it with Claret in
2002.
Texas was 1970 to 2005.
Why do you think they hated John Cooper so
Oklahoma's on a 25-year run right now of no national title.
And Nebraska was 97, so they're on a 30-year deal.
So Ohio State's passing
an 11-year run. I mean, that's...
Yeah, well...
You ought to be ashamed of your
11,
program.
yeah.
Well, and they weren't good enough to play for it last year. It could have been...
You're on a 28-year run.
I know.
Yeah.
97.
Not good,
and it does seem like that was like just around the corner, but no, it wasn't. It was, oh, God.
No, it wasn't. So there you go. There's an update on national titles and kind of just where we sit now with those. I thought it'd be an interesting time to take a look at that. What better time, actually, to take a look at that? So Ohio State now in a pretty exclusive club, top 5 modern day with 9 national titles. Meanwhile, a couple of notes in the NFL coaching carousel. We talked yesterday, Cowboys, no interview set up with Deion Sanders. That seems to have kind of petered out as a result of that report specifically. The fact there is no interviews, I think, kind of killed some of the oxygen that was feeding that fire. But there's no news on what the Cowboys are still doing at this point. But there are other teams that are making moves, and that includes the fact that what was rumored to be happening is official, and we talked about it, touched on it a little bit yesterday, but Ben Johnson moving from Detroit as one of Dan Campbell's right-hand men, offensive coordinator of the Lions, now the official new head coach of the Chicago Bears. So kind of touched on, I said, I'm fascinated to see what happens with Caleb Williams, but does Ben Johnson give you any type of feeling one way or the other on the Chicago Bears moving forward?
I mean,
he's the name of the offseason. Like he's the name of the.
He's clearly an offensive innovator. I think he's getting too much crap for that end around pass. But no, I think it's a good hire. I mean, we'll see. I'd want the person who's the best at working.
Who's better, he or who's the guy with Minnesota?
Kevin O'Connell.
He.
Well, I mean, they're not getting Kevin O'Connell though. So
no, I know
they're not, because today. Thank you for leading into that. I knew you did that. You did that entirely intentionally. You weren't just totally skipping over anything at all. But Kevin O'Connell signing a new contract today with the Minnesota Vikings.
I like him. If you could make Sam Darnold look that good, I know that in the playoff game he was terrible.
He was awful in the end.
Ben Johnson rejuvenated Jared Goff's career.
No,
so
absolutely.
This is the best move, I think. This is the best guy, quarterback coach-wise, that was out there on the market that could help Caleb Williams, that could spark that offense, that could help them build an offensive line. The offensive line in Detroit is fantastic. And Ben Johnson, while he's not the offensive line coach, had a huge, huge part in that. And offensive line love playing in that offense because occasionally they're going to get to catch a ball. Yeah. So he's going to create some excitement there. The problem Chicago has, though, is that they are not run by serious people.
Yeah, there is that issue. And a little college football flavor there, right? With good old Kevin Warren, everybody's favorite. But yeah,
I was talking about the McCaskies, but yeah.
Yeah, but he's in charge of their getting their stadium and all that done.
Yeah.
Mrs. McCaskey's a sweet woman.
I'm sure she is, but she's not. They're not.
She doesn't know how to run a franchise. That old broad. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, Chicago. Moving on with their head coach and hire in Ben Johnson, so they steal from their NFC North rival. And now for Detroit, it's a matter of, do you lose both coordinators? I mean, is Aaron Glenn going to get one of these open jobs? We'll see on that. But, yeah, Ben Johnson official with Chicago, and then Kevin O'Connell, just mentioned that. He gets a multi-year contract extension announced this afternoon from the Minnesota Vikings. No specifics on that deal, but obviously the guy's been pretty good, 34-17 overall with Minnesota. They've been in the playoffs twice in 3 seasons. They were 14-3 this year, heading into the playoffs, and then obviously did not get the best version of Sam Darnold there in the postseason. But so that's another NFL note just on that job remaining as is for the foreseeable future.
Who is one of the questions in the chat? Who's Jacksonville going to get?
Good question.
I think if I were them, I'd hire Liam Cohen.
Isn't he an actor?
That's Liam Neeson. Okay. But no,
who's dating Pam and no makeup Pam Anderson?
Yeah,
no makeup.
Yeah, that's her whole thing now. Is no makeup Pam Anderson is dating Liam Neeson.
She's up for awards for this movie.
Good for her.
Yeah,
good for her.
His movies, The Taken, or all that was scary.
Yeah, well, that's the point.
But being goofy, it's not scary.
I mean, like if he called you up, I'd be scared. But Liam Cohen did a great job this year with Baker Mayfield after Baker Mayfield lost Dave Canales to the Panthers. I would hire Liam Cohen and see what he can do with Trevor Lawrence.
Okay.
I really thought that Doug Peterson was going to, like, that after that first year, I thought, like, man, they got a little something here, and then that just petered out so fast. Like, I follow the Khan family because obviously, well, not obviously for most people, but the son, Tony Khan, runs a pro wrestling company that I follow that I have a love-hate relationship with a lot of times. So I've, like, just as a byproduct of that, wanted to see them do well. But, yeah, they just seem like they can't ever get out of their own way. So we're still awaiting that job, and we're also awaiting the Cowboys. So we'll see. But the Bears, obviously, that one name that was attached to them, Mike McCarthy, still out there as well.
New Orleans?
New Orleans seems...
I think that's... If he's going to get a job, that's going to be it. I think the Jets, apparently, the report is Aaron Glenn's there today, and their goal is to not let him leave the building without a contract.
So you've got let's just run through this list.
We'll get Aaron
real quick.
Glenn on the show because of his connection to Phil Bennett.
Good. Yeah.
So Chicago is filled. Dallas is open. Jacksonville's open. Las Vegas remains open. New Orleans remains open. The Jets remain open. And that's it as far as the openings go now with the Bears totally official. And then final thing, and this was very much off the radar, but, man, imagine being a young kid and just having this all thrown at you. I saw this from the AP, actually. There's an 11-year-old kid in Los Angeles who ended up getting a one-of-a-kind baseball card featuring Paul Skeens, the National League Rookie of the Year from the Pittsburgh Pirates, LSU star, before Garrett jumps on the microphone to make sure that I bring that up. And you may know him as the boyfriend of Libby Dunn as well. But
I wonder how much her card would be worth.
Probably a lot of money, but I'm going to bring her up in a second. But Topps, who created the card, said that this specific card features Paul Skeens' autograph on it and also a patch from a game-worn jersey. So it's one of those big finds. So now this young kid, he gets it. He's 11 years old, and he can do any number of things with it. He could sell it. He could trade it. He could do whatever. Well, the Pittsburgh Pirates want this card because it's a special card, and it's obviously going to be worth a lot of money. And so they have already put together a package of what they're offering this young man for his Paul Skeens card. And so apparently, according to one of the reports, the package includes 30 years worth of season tickets behind home plate at PNC Park in exchange for the card.
How much is it valued at?
It's not valued at anything yet. It's just a very rare card.
If you're not gonna leave, if you feel like you're gonna live in Pittsburgh the rest of your life or Boston or whatever, Garrett, let me ask you that. What would you do for that?
I would need to see the money. Like I need a price before I'm willing to give up. Like just take tickets. I need to see what I can get.
If it's worth $1.8 million.
Okay, here's the deal. I would negotiate. Like, you don't have to give me 30 years, but if you gave me 10 years of season tickets and the money,
this is a one-of-one card. There's nothing like it, which is why is this such a big deal? It's worth a lot of money because it's the only card of its kind.
How about 15 years behind home plate? They fly you out to training camp.
No, I'm not asking what your package would be. I'm asking what. I'm bringing up 30 years of behind the home plate season tickets as part of the offer.
Yeah, I got
a date with Livy.
No, here for an 11-year-old, I'm sure that'd be great. Right. But you know what?
I'm sure there's something involving Livy Dunn. You can convince an 11-year-old how to give away his card. But
but if that was I'll tell you this: if that was the Red Sox, I'd be like, guys, I'm moving to Boston. I'm going to start talking like this. And I'd be behind the plate going, listen, Sale, you suck now.
Yeah, you're going to be like Brian Kelly and change your accent?
Yeah, I would be that guy all together and take the deal. And then I know my wife would be like, well, how much is the card worth? Who cares? We're behind home plate at Fenway every day for the rest of our lives.
There'd be a lot of airline ticket prices for you.
I'd moved to Boston.
Yeah, so one of the parts of the offer, which is what I was getting to, was 30 years worth of season tickets behind home plate at PNC Park. For the card. Now, Livy Dunn, and obviously he's 11, he's just a kid, but she is involved in this. And so, I don't know. I'd imagine a kiss on the cheek would probably go as long of a way as $100,000 for a kid, who probably knows who Livy Dunn is. I would imagine she's as big. I mean, she's what would she even be for us?
Kathy Ireland.
Too young?
We all have different answers.
Yeah. Britney Spears.
Who?
Britney Spears.
Britney Spears? Yeah, probably a Britney Spears type.
My era was Elle McPherson.
Britney was a little dirty looking.
Well, I'm thinking of when I was 11, it would have been Kathy Ireland.
Okay, yeah.
When I was 13, it would have been Tiffany Amber Thiessen. When I'm 44, it's probably still Tiffany Amber Thiessen.
Not Cheryl Tiegs?
No, she was before me.
Well, I mean, I won't say 11, but I actually just brought her name Pamela Anderson, late 90s. Yeah. Maybe it's equivalent to that or something. Just as far as a very popular, obviously, especially with the male, super attractive, talented person. So Livy Dunn is also offering the owner of the card to take in a game with her in a luxury suite at the ballpark during a Paul Skeens start.
I mean, that's priceless.
I think that probably goes a really long way.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of the offers. Livy Dunn offering to take in a game in a suite at PNC Park while Paul Skeens pitches. There's the Pirates offering 30 years worth of behind home plate tickets at PNC Park. But he could still just go out there and look elsewhere for offers. And so it mentions that Paul Skeens is only 22, just won the Cy Young. And so there's no telling how much this card is worth, but be interesting to see what he eventually pulls in for that. And I just thought that was definitely an off-the-radar type of story.
I would still do, like, even though it's going to be one of one, like Paul Skeens has just started his career, so I would make sure I unload it now before anything bad could happen.
And hopefully, rotate a cup or something.
Here's the other thing. I would throw in a couple things. Like, listen, I would like my birthday party to be here. Because you've got like 3-4 more birthday parties before it starts getting weird, maybe 5 if you're 11. So, like, I would like my birthday party, my high school graduation party, all this stuff. I want some of that thrown in here too, and I want the Pirates to come, and not just the 40th man on the roster. I want some good players.
Not like one of those caravans that go into like Beaumont.
It's like the minor league pitcher that may make the opening day roster.
Where's the kid from?
He's from Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah, I would imagine he's from Pittsburgh. I actually didn't see that.
Somebody said that he might be from L.A. Which
that might have been on the other story he's from Los Angeles. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, then what did Pirates tickets do for him?
Very good question.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing it up, Gregory. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I may have mentioned that at the start, and if I didn't, I'm glad that you did because that obviously plays into it as well. I mean, if you get Dodgers front row tickets, then I'd do that in a heartbeat. I mean, but if you don't live there, then maybe not. Yeah. Maybe you just sell it, which is probably what will happen here, and he'll make like $500,000 or whatever it is. But talk about being lucky. That 11-year-old kid's got some options on the table, and he's going to make some money one way or another with this one-of-a-kind Paul Skeens card. So there's a few things off the radar.
All right. Thank you. By the way, it's not Libby Dunn, retired stockbroker. It's Livy. Dunn.
Olivia.
Paul, you started a chat room, a little bit of a flare-up
Kathy Ireland.
The Kathy Ireland.
Yeah.
I mentioned Cheryl Teagues. Then Road Dogg, who I haven't paid attention to Road Dogg being a part of it. Olivia Newton-John, who was gorgeous. And now there's a run on whose poster was on your wall when you were.
I had a nice little rotation.
Careful.
I had Kathy Ireland. I had Elle McPherson. I think there was a Cindy Crawford in there. I did not do Pam Anderson because it was a little bit on the nose, but I will tell you this. I know every episode of Baywatch, and I can sing you the theme song, so it's not like
Olivia
some
Newton-John.
people stand in the darkness.
Yeah. Olivia Newton-John, as someone mentioned, passed away in 2022. She was just absolutely a beautiful woman. All right, so, Farrah Fawcett is my age bracket would have been on the wall.
A lot of Charlie's Angels and Three's Company stuff going on here. So yeah.
All right. Thank you, Craig. That's it.
Yeah, he said.
Who would have been your poster on the wall?
I mean, I remember what it was, and I think people my age will probably remember. I got the poster at the county fair for like popping balloons with darts or something. But it was the Jenny McCarthy with the silver bathing suit or silver bathing suit top, and that's that's a pretty well known poster. You can easily Google that one, but that's the one that I remember having for a couple years or something.
You don't know how powerful hot girls are? Jenny McCarthy has convinced half the world that vaccines don't work.
She has.
She went to medical school for 0 seconds of her life.
Right after singled out.
Just because she's got great cans, they're like, hey, she's got a point.
Oh, my God. Oh, my Lord. All right, around the corner, John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist. Craig, great stuff. Appreciate that. Someone brought up, we were talking about old school, great dominant teams, the Ivy League schools or whatever. Did you know the most dominant college football team of all time, the 1899 Sewanee Tigers?
Do you know what Sewanee is called now?
No.
It's the University of the South.
Okay. They were 12-0, 11 shutouts, 322 points scored, 10 allowed. 5 of those wins, all shutouts, came in a 6-day period on a 2,500-mile trip by train. 10 of their 12 opponents, including all 5 of the road trip victims, remain major college football powers to this day. So there's the retired stockbroker brought that up about 1899 when we're going back. Like you have to when college football began in 18 whatever it is, those count, right? Yeah, different eras, different type of opportunities now for athletes too. When we come back, we continue 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. Marco's Pizza online. Go to marcos.com, and there's always usually between 3 and 6 or 8 different specials. For example, the real big pizza deal, 30% off. You can use the code word big deal. You could order that, pick it up. They can have it delivered. The lunch special, any Pozzoli and 20-ounce bottle of pop, a Pepsi, a limited time $7.99. And that's from a lunchtime, 11 a.m. until 3 p.m. The mega meal deal, 1 large topping pizza, cheesy bread, and Cinesquares, $19.99. Pozzoli at $5.99 each, which is could be pepperoni, chicken, bacon ranch, buffalo chicken, and pepperoni and sausage. And if you want what they have when it comes to the Magnifico, whether it's pepperoni just slathered all over, they wouldn't be slathered, just piled up on top of the crust, or even pepperoni and Italian sausage, the Magnifico. Bob Mock owns 5 locations in Waco, fastest growing pizza brand in America. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
Looking for the best selection of new and pre-owned cars in Central Texas? Look no further than Allen Samuels in Waco. From tough trucks to family SUVs, we've got it all at unbeatable prices. Come see us today at Allen Samuels in Waco, your friend in the car business.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
.365 Sports, appreciate your time today. It'll take you up until 6. Timothy Vermeer, 1869, Princeton Rutgers was start of college football. Appreciate that. So we were asking about why would college football not play their championship game on Friday nights? This is from former Fox Sports executive. Friday is the worst. Sunday is the best, Super Bowl. As far as prime time viewing, been that way for years. Period. Clean and simple.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. They're playing on Monday, so Sunday doesn't really matter, I guess, in this equation. But, yeah, I mean, we're talking about two different things because we're talking about what's best for college football fans, and that's not what's in the interest of the networks who actually make that decision. They want what's the best day. So Monday it is with absolutely little to no buildup whatsoever because the buildup gets cut off and overshadowed by the NFL playoffs. But I don't know if putting it on Friday makes that much of a difference. I think it would for me. I think it'd be way more exciting and a fun way to cap off the week and then lead into the NFL. But I'm not a TV executive trying to satisfy my bosses and my sponsors. So that's why it's just not so simple, obviously.
Yeah. All right, so there we are, though. That's, and remember now, the money that ESPN paid to have the college football playoff games, they want to play on Monday. That's the opportunity. They're not going to play during the NFL weekends, which goes yet for another weekend. Although Saturday, how about if they waited till this Saturday?
I mean, that's still a long time.
And what do you got? 3 weeks between the freaking last round and this round?
That doesn't shorten the season at all. That lengthens it.
No, I'm just asking.
Yeah, I mean that doesn't solve the problem.
Yeah, by then I may be tuned out.
Yeah, I mean that makes it worse.
They want money. Yeah, you're right. That's obvious. They want the eyeballs. They want to have abilities to sell the advertising to make up for the billions, whatever, millions upon millions of dollars that they're paying for these games. Tim Brando says this a lot, that the college football playoff needs to be on different networks, that it doesn't need to be run by one.
Yeah, no, I'm completely.
But what if Fox had all of them?
I think he would probably agree with. I mean, he would still say the same thing because the point, like, he's not even just stumping for Fox here. Like TNT and I'm sure CBS,
different networks implies just different networks, except for me if I get my Fox way.
And it just allows it. Look, the NFL has grown because of that. Like ESPN consolidating all this power on this sport. Is probably not good for it especially in the postseason. Where the NFL postseason, man, last year I'm on Peacock. This year you got NBC, Amazon, like everybody.
CBS, NBC, ABC/ESPN, and Fox had the games over the weekend.
Yeah, and so like as you get down to the network, but that's not correct. But Amazon had a playoff game. Peacock had one last year. Netflix is going to get more and more stuff. So they're diversifying their portfolio, and college football is kind of like shrinking it. So, yeah, no, I agree with them.
Yeah, stop monopolizing the sport, ESPN. ESPN does take a hell of a lot of heat. And a lot of times probably not fair because they have a powerful show on a Saturday morning that their numbers were better this past season than ever before. Fox's show is getting better, but it was the one that started later. They sure take a lot of crap for possibly making football at the college level as popular as it's ever been before.
Well, there's some dumb narratives that revolve around ESPN that I've seen here lately as though there's like some grand conspiracy theory to kill everybody but the SEC or something, which makes absolutely no sense for their business plan whatsoever, nor their investments of multi-millions of dollars into these various leagues. So, besides the fact that it just doesn't make any common sense at all, because, they don't need the Big 12, they just want big games. Well, what are they going to play all day Saturday?
Yeah.
They're just going to play all SEC games? Okay, that fills 2 channels. What are they going to do with the other ones?
Yep.
So it just doesn't even make any sense that would they try to cut the price tag a little bit on some properties? Absolutely, they could do that.
But you do wonder, Craig and Paul, and we've discussed this, why would they ever back off helping promote what they already own, the ACC and part of the Big 12?
I mean, that's something they've got to do better.
Or
I don't
AAC
know,
or whoever.
I don't know why they don't make it more even.
Yeah,
that's where I think it's just kind of dumb.
That doesn't make sense. I mean, I guess you've got a promotional budget and you do this.
Well, it's because you also have way more invested into one of them than you do the others.
You do, but increase the value of the other one. You promote it, right? You don't just bury it or pretend like it doesn't exist or that it's less than. That, I think, is the issue where they get so hyper-focused on. And I think this is what has been to the detriment of ESPN and the mouse in general, is that their leadership is so concerned about the 2% of people who talk about things on social media that they lose. And this is across the board. This isn't just their sports thing. This is Star Wars and Marvel and all this other stuff. Instead of just doing it right, they're like, oh, well, man, people didn't really like what we did there. Let's overcorrect. As opposed to no, just fix it.
I've had to bring this up with this show sometimes. Just because Twitter's talking about it doesn't mean it's a big deal.
Yeah, exactly.
It really doesn't.
Yeah, so they're focused on and here's the thing, they're focused on it. Why do you think the whole network's built around Stephen A. Smith right now? Because that's the thing that gets the most reaction on social media. But what's weird is I met Scott Masteller years ago when I first started.
The best, man.
Scott Masteller was the head of ESPN Radio, and he's the guy who really streamlined and pioneered the inner workings of sports radio and took out, if you wanted to know how to make it work right, he took out all the bull crap about it. So I was very young in the business, and I was in a tent actually at the Cotton Bowl for Texas OU with him and Colin Cowherd. Colin Cowherd was doing a thing, and I talked to Scott, just me and him, for an hour, just getting in information. And he said, "Look, remember," because I asked him about callers and all this, and he's like, 1% of the listeners of your show will ever pick up the phone and call. Most people just want to hear you and make sure that you're entertaining and good and smart. So make sure that you're programming to the 99% and not the 1%. So when we would take calls, and we had a guy named Jason used to call us all the time, and he would just hijack the calls. He would say something crazy, and then we couldn't get it back because of that. And so I always thought about what Scott Masteller said, and now he's not there anymore at ESPN, and they have different leadership in the television programming, and they're looking at Twitter going, oh, look what Steven and Skip and all these people said. And, like, you're breaking your own friggin' rule. Like, program to the masses, not the loud minority.
Yeah, I don't think that ESPN is necessarily the big bad devil that's trying to bring you down. I think there's way too much of that kind of stuff that even outside of sports is just like it goes kind of crazy and overboard. But I will say that there is clearly a favoritism, and they clearly want the SEC to do better, or the best possible, because that's where their largest investment is. And I don't think they're like anti-Big 12, because why would you have them on your network? I don't think they're anti-ACC. Do I think they maybe have a favorite child, though? Yeah, absolutely. It's the one they've doted on more than anybody.
You should never have a favorite child.
I mean, you do.
Yeah, I mean, we know it's Jennifer, but...
Who's Jennifer? Remember?
The random girl you bring up and expect everybody to know. No, I'm just... no, but with the ESPN thing, I say all that, and there they were, right as the playoff field's announced, bashing the effing playoff like it was the worst thing ever. Why? Because there weren't enough SEC teams in there. And that was Scott Van Pelt, who I have an immense amount of respect for, and I generally like most of what he does.
Better ones, yeah.
And he was a crybaby. He was joining the crybaby club of after the first round games of like, they've got to redo this, and this is ridiculous. And it was just like, it was like they were just doing the Feinbaum show or something after that first round reaction. But it was Van Pelt instead, and it was all of their analysts. And so that's where that left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth, because I think that was very counterproductive. And that's where you do feed into the conspiracy theorists that feel like you're just trying to kill these leagues, or you're trying to set this league on its own. And that's where you go, oh, no, that's kind of silly. And then you see that particular example, and you go,
no.
Well, no, there's something to it. I mean, they clearly do have a favorite child, and they clearly do spend more on one than they do on the others. And that other one does bring in more than the others do, to be fair. But yeah, I don't think it's all or nothing for them, but I do think there was a clear bias that was absolutely 100% evident in their coverage following the first-round playoff blowouts.
I think it was when Desmond Howard said, why are we picking this game?
Or that, or any other examples that have fed into this for years and has led to where there's a lot of people that feel the way they do about that network, and its brand of coverage.
Yeah, okay. All right, when we come back, John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist. I think we've had some topics that have turned out to be very good discussions, and a lot of you, we appreciate your feedback too in the chat room. When we come back, John McClain, around the corner, Paul Catalina, and his top five. This is 365 Sports. Pioneer Steel and Pipe, location in Waco, Texas, opened their doors in 1943, and they were, I've been to their building a few times before. And then in December of 2022, over 2 years ago now, they built a mega place. Bigger, better, faster, and stronger with what they have. Pipe, steel, and metal. You want to build something, you better know where they are, and you probably do from back even when they opened their doors. Not many of you are around when they opened their doors in 1943, but those who are contractors, builders, commercial, real estate, you know about what they represent, the product they have. And now with their new location on Loop 340, Highway 6, just a little bit east of I-35 in Waco. Bigger, better, faster, stronger. Pipe, steel, and metal. PioneerBoys.com.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing is time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Appreciate the Cutlers, Jim and Don Cutler, great people who are the voices of what we do on 365 Sports, promoting sponsorships, hours, etc., segments like this one with John. John, I saw this. I believe you retweeted this. Not that I'm stalking you. From NFL Rookie Watch, Jaden Daniels is a better rookie quarterback than the 2012 Russell Wilson, RG3, better than Ben Roethlisberger, Andrew Luck, Cam Newton, even 83 Dan Marino, and 2023 C.J. Stroud. Do you believe that?
Absolutely. Only an idiot would think anything different. I mean, I can't even believe people are trying to make that claim because it's obvious. He's had the greatest season of any rookie quarterback in history, and some others have been good. He is much better than C.J. Stroud was last year. And anyway, that's a no-brainer. By the way, I'm just watching baseball. Billy Wagner, Billy the Kid, one of the greatest relievers in history, just got voted to the Hall of Fame in his 10th year. And Ichiro Suzuki, everybody knew he was going to make it. One moron didn't vote for him. Mariano Rivera is still the only player that got every vote. I think whoever didn't vote for him should have to say why. Because it's preposterous. It's like Babe Ruth and Ty Cobb, they weren't unanimous. And I think back then people probably held grudges. But today, I just think that is awful. But I'm a big Astros fan, as you guys know. I'm happy for Billy the Kid. My wife is ecstatic because of the Commanders, who she continues to call the Redskins, and is hoping and praying they win at Lincoln Financial Field and go to the Super Bowl in Dan Quinn's first season. What a story.
John, Billy Wagner is a good avatar for this because and the baseball writers, you guys, the football writers do it a whole lot better. You meet together really and kind of hash this thing out. It's not, hundreds of people all over the place with, everybody's got different opinions, but you set some rules that take the agendas out of it. And Billy Wagner is no more of a Hall of Famer today than he was 10 years ago when he was first on the ballot. Now, I understand that you can't just because then you'd have years where you have 19 guys that retired and they're all in the first year, or it just wouldn't be even. But do you believe when you're voting, okay, this guy's eventually a Hall of Famer, he may not get in this year because there's a couple of people ahead of him, but nothing that they do from the time they retire to the time that you actually get them in makes them not a Hall of Famer after they retire?
That's a great point. Just like last year, Billy Wagner had 73% of the votes, more than any other one who didn't make it. You got to get 75%. In some years, baseball has one guy go in. In football, we try to always, because there's so many candidates, we don't say we're going to put the maximum in, but most of the time we do. And when we do, there's just not enough room. In baseball, a lot of the times it's because you just get up in the morning and think he doesn't deserve it. I think they have over 400 voting members, and we have a committee, and we text and we direct message and we talk. Seldom am I in a press box when I'm not talking about the Hall of Fame to other members of the Hall of Fame selection committee. It's a year-round process. We don't just all of a sudden cast a ballot and then we have presentations. So I'm partial biased, of course, but I like the fact that we, even though you don't say that you like a guy or not, or how you're voting, usually you have a pretty good idea. But I'm just glad Wagner finally got in there, because in his last season at like 38, when he was with the Mets, he had a one single-digit ERA and over 35 saves. And I don't know many that have been that good that late in their careers.
John, Chiefs 23, Texans 14. Was it that simple, or was it more like Will Anderson suggested, and it was Chiefs and officials 23, Texans 14?
No, I'm so tired of that belly aching and whining about the officials. Yes, the officials made two really bad calls, but since 2022, opponents have been called for 5, roughing the quarterback calls, and the Chiefs have been called for none. And that's just the way it is. You know, when you go there, especially there, they're going to protect Mahomes, and he's good at drawing penalties. I hate it, though. Troy Aikman had the best game of any color guy I've ever seen in my career. And the way he called out the officials and the replay and showing that the Texans got screwed twice. But it was when Mahomes was running to the sideline and the defensive players were letting up. And he stopped, hoping they would hit him. And they did, not hard. And he threw his arms up in the air as he was going out of bounds, like he's a soccer player. I think if you're a quarterback and you let up, they deserve to clean your clock where there's not any hands on your face. And quarterbacks try to pull it off, but he's the best. He's also the best quarterback in football with the best coach. I respect the heck out of them. Love the Chiefs, but I'm tired of them. I want to see the Bills. I don't think the Bills are going to beat the Chiefs twice in one season and hand them their only 2 losses. Last game of the season shouldn't count because it was backups. I just don't see Buffalo pulling that off. I wanted Detroit. Now I want Washington. I'd like to see Buffalo and Washington because you know what they say, happy wife, happy life.
Yeah, you're right. No, and also that's the 91 Super Bowl, the Super Bowl 26, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, my wife, first time when we were dating, she went to the Super Bowl after the 87 season and saw them win. And when they cheated, practice when they weren't supposed to, but like Charlie Casserly told me, when you're not cheating, you're not trying. They did that during the 82 strike as well, when they also won another strike Super Bowl. But 91 was great. So I told my wife when she gets mad sometime and I don't have any other cards to play, and I say, but you did get to see the Redskins win 2 Super Bowls in person with good seats.
John, on the expedited replay, what would be stopping them from just calling down and going, hey, that wasn't a late hit? Like, why not add that?
First of all, I've said this a million times, and I'll continue to say it. Bill Belichick always lobbied the league to let everything be reviewable. The games wouldn't be any longer because coaches don't get more challenges. And for some reason, they won't do it. But if there was a sky judge and the sky judge sees the replays that we see on TV, he would tell them call it off. Wouldn't take much time because he sees at the same time we do. And there's so many things they could do that they don't do. And so it is hard to be an official in sports, especially in football when they're so big and they like all those face mask calls they miss. That's got to be reviewable. If anything changes, they're going to make that reviewable because they missed so many during the season. But at this time of the year, usually what would playoffs be without officiating controversy.
Yeah, I mean, even back to the days when Drew Pearson's catch from Staubach against the Vikings and the push-off, whatever. But that's a what do you call it? That's not like an evidence call. That's what's the word I'm thinking of?
Judgment call.
Well,
Judgment,
I'll
yeah,
tell
it's a
you
judgment
what,
call, yeah.
the sky judge is not going to call down and see penalties. If there was no flag thrown there on that push-off by Drew Pearson, of course, Cowboys fans think it wasn't a push-off, and the Vikings do. But, they say, well, unintended consequences. No, the sky judge is not looking at the other side of the field for penalties that aren't called. He's looking at what we're looking at. The ones that should be called that aren't, or the ones that aren't, like those two personal fouls on the Texans against Patrick Mahomes.
John, Ben Johnson leaving Detroit, not going too far away. He'll see them twice a year as the new head coach of the Chicago Bears. I'm fascinated by this from a Caleb Williams standpoint because it kind of feels like sink or swim. But your thoughts on that job, and obviously there's still a handful of them that are remaining of high interest.
Well, first of all, Caleb Williams, if you go back and look, even though they lost, had a pretty good season. He didn't throw interceptions. So I think he's going to be great, just like he was projected to be. And Ben Johnson will help him. Now he's got to get a good quarterback coach because the quarterback coaches are unheralded. They spend more time with them than the coordinators and the head coach. In this case, Johnson will call plays, of course. And so, we're all talking about how the greatest division in football, NFC North, they didn't win a playoff game. The AFC South won more playoff games than they did. One. And so Ben Johnson knows the division in and out. They've got a talented roster. They need to fix their offensive line. They got a lot of cap money. I think the Raiders ought to hire Pete Carroll. I think the Cowboys ought to hire Kellen Moore. I think Mike McCarthy ought to go to New Orleans. And I think that Jacksonville should hire Liam Cohen, offensive coordinator of the Bucs, but they're not going to. And then Aaron Glenn's going to the Jets.
Dan Campbell's emotions, John. Obviously, Craig, Garrett, we're all lifelong Washington fans, but it was such an first time I've really sat back and listened to a post game in the NFL in a long, long time. I like him a lot. Aaron Glenn, a lot, along with, but I mean, man, I'm not trying to say I'm worried about him, but he wears his emotions. That's who he is. He's that kind of player. How devastated was that for him?
Who doesn't like Dan Campbell? It's like who doesn't like Andy Reid? Campbell's earned so much respect. It was painful watching them up there have to go through that. But they'll be back. They're loaded with talent. They lose their coordinators. So the 49ers. So does Baltimore. And they stay up on top every year. So they've known these coaches are gone. They've got people targeted. I'm not sure who they are if they're not on the staff. So Dan will be back, but man, you're right. It's just painful to watch him. And I think of how far he's born in Clifton, grew up in Glen Rose, an Aggie. And, how can you not pull for a guy like that? Unless it's your favorite team going against him. And I can't wait. It would be I don't know what the weather is right now because if Philadelphia can run the ball, if the weather's bad, they can run the ball. And Washington has a hard time stopping the run. But I'll guarantee you we may see Jaden Daniels carry the ball 15 times if the weather's bad.
300 yards rushing. Saquon Barkley's been just a great story. Washington they're 30th in the league in stopping the run. That's why I thought that they would need kind of a clean field like playing at L.A. in that environment because of the way they play. I don't know, man. The Eagles do look good. A quarterback wins a game. It's not like 6-3 back in the day with Earl Morrall or anyone like that. But Jalen Hurts had 120-something yards passing, no touchdowns, and they still win.
I don't think he's won a game throwing for the playoffs throwing for 200 yards because he runs so much and he runs so well, and they're a double-headed monster with the running game, just like the Ravens are. But, hey, they got farther than the Ravens did, and they've done a great job. They're playing at home. The crowd loves it. The worse the weather is, the more they like it. But I think I have not seen anything from Jaden Daniels that makes me think this moment's going to be too big for him. If you can go into Detroit and put 45 points up on the fans there, the home field advantage there against a team that many of us thought was the best in the NFL over the Chiefs. You're capable of winning anywhere. And there's not going to be a lack of familiarity. That's the truth.
Well, I was worried about them protecting him because he was spotless in that game. They got the ball out early. John, you mentioned the Baseball Hall of Fame. That is great news with Billy Wagner and his, 10th year. But so what is the timeline of what you have as a Pro Football Hall of Fame voter and that committee as you lead towards the Super Bowl in New Orleans here pretty soon?
No, they changed the way we vote, and we don't have any idea. We'll find out, and we'll find out at the NFL Honors Program. Only thing I know right now is the MVP is going to be Lamar Jackson, because the committee that voted on him being first team All-Pro is not make him MVP with Josh Allen's second team, and offensive rookie of the year is going to be Jaden Daniels. I would make Adam Peters of the Commanders executive of the year, Dan Quinn coach, and can't make it a clean sweep because of defense. But what a season! But I don't have any idea who's going to be elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
What has been the negative against Darren Woodson?
There's never any negative. When our committee meets, nobody says, I don't think Darren Woodson deserves it. And they don't say, well, Woodson didn't do this, didn't do that. I voted for Woodson every year. One of the best safeties. He played, covered people in the slot. Some people think because he didn't have a specific position, I think he'll get in at some point. And I feel terrible for him because he deserves it.
Okay, John, I have an answer to your question of who was the guy who did not vote for Ichiro. He very, very proudly just posted his ballot on Twitter. His name is Mark Gooden. He is the New York Mets senior beat writer for the National Enquirer. So take that for what it's worth.
The National Enquirer?
That's what it says. I don't know. Yeah.
God, I didn't even know that was still in existence.
Yeah.
I didn't either.
Yeah. So he says, I put a lot of thought into this, and he's honored to be the only 3-time Pulitzer Prize winner to have a vote. So he made sure to whip that out. And
he whipped out something else.
Yeah. He only voted for one player. It was.
Let me guess. Was it Sabathia?
No. He didn't vote for any of the players who got in. He voted for Chase Utley.
What? A second baseman from the Phillies. To me, a guy like that, there should be a committee. If you're such a dumbass, they should pull your vote and find somebody else that'll do a better job. I don't have a problem. If you don't want to vote for Ichiro, who's one of the greatest players in history, and the guy sounds like he's wearing this like a medal.
Yeah.
When the fact is, he's getting publicity he's never going to get. Did you say he's a 3-time Pulitzer Prize?
I don't know.
winner?
I might my friend might have just got me here, but
yeah, I think you got gotten.
Yeah, I think I got gotten.
But I do think that that's preposterous, and that's one of the reasons I don't think you should have that many voting members. But that guy's probably eating it up because he's getting publicity now on every talk show in the country, and he'll get probably death threats and stuff like that. But you know what? If he wants to announce to the world he's an idiot, that's who am I to argue?
All right, I'm going to bring up something. I don't think it is controversial, but if CeCe Sabathia hadn't played for the Yankees, would he be in the Hall of Fame?
I mean, did he win 250 games, something like that? We'll never have another 300 win.
Probably not. Yeah, he was 251. 251. He had 3,000 strikeouts. Yeah.
Sticking around trying to get 300, I don't think he'll ever be able to do it. So if you win 250, that's pretty impressive. And sometimes people will say, well, my guy, when they're making a presentation, pro football team, plays in a small market. Well, that's insulting. We don't make decisions based on the market you played in. That's for fans. That's for publicity, not for the Hall of Fame. So they always create a lot of controversy, of course. But I think when I voted for Sabathia, I hadn't even thought about it that much. He's certainly not a no-brainer or a first ballot. But if you win 251 games I think he deserves to be it.
Yeah, there's certain stats now that the numbers are different. Like, for example, rushing for 1,000 yards in the NFL doesn't mean you didn't, but with now 17 games, that's kind of been skewed a little bit.
Yeah,
as far
with
as that.
18 coming.
Yeah, and
we're going to have 18.
I saw that.
And I'd tell you what drives me crazy when I'm reading a story about pitchers and they don't put their records in there. Baseball writers leave them out because they don't think records are important anymore. Drives me bleeping crazy that I got to read the story and then look up what his record was.
Yeah. Thank you, John. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys. Second Bears.
John McClain. Couple of things on CC Sabathia. 250 is probably the new 300 because you don't get as many starts. His 3,000 strikeouts, which to me doesn't matter how many years you play, that's a big deal. He went past that note. Won a World Series, 6-time All-Star, won a Cy Young and an MVP in the playoffs. But you think that the fact that he played 10 years with New York probably didn't hurt him?
Oh, I don't think it hurt him.
I'm not against him.
No, I think he's a Hall of Famer.
Okay.
I mean, he was one of the guys who was, when he came to New York, he helped swing that balance of power to them because he's one of the better ones. Plus, I think a lot of people are heartwarmed by his story. We almost drank himself out of the league and then came back. So, by the way, here's a stat for you. Mariano Rivera still only 100%. Derek Jeter also only missed one vote. Somebody didn't think Jeter was. Griffey didn't have 3 people vote for him. Tom Seaver didn't have 5. Nolan Ryan didn't have 8. And Cal Ripken didn't have 8.
How many did Mays have? I even think, I'm not even sure Babe Ruth was unanimous.
But there used to be, there are, I remember the guy who didn't vote for Jeter said, I just don't think anybody should be unanimous. And you're like...
Well, how
Shut
about
up, man? That's such a look at me BS. I swear, if we ripped the anonymity off these voters, that dude would not have not voted for Ichiro today.
Yeah.
If he actually had to face the music, said Bob James of the San Diego Tribune did not vote, was the only one out of hundreds of people. And it's clearly wrong. Like, if Ichiro's not a first ballot Hall of Famer, there is no first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Like, there's just not. Like, you have to have... I don't know, man. Like, I don't want to get too crazy over it because I'm sure that's what some loser is doing, is trying to get people riled up and get attention. But that person is, beyond a shadow of a doubt, a total loser because they're either a Yankees fan trying to preserve the Rivera thing or they're, I don't know what. I don't want to, make too many accusations here, but there is no excuse for Ichiro to not be unanimous.
Here's why he's unanimous. I'll give you one stat and one stat only about Ichiro Suzuki, and I read this morning. It was 10 days into his first season with the Mariners. He went over 300 for his, that would have been his career average because it's 10 days. After that point, for the next however many years he played, he never, after 10 days, his career average never dipped below 300.
Yeah,
so his career average was 300 from the 10th day he was in Major League Baseball until the day he retired. That's how great of a hitter he was.
Yep.
So for you to be like, I want to be different, kick rocks.
One of the things, and for me, growing up in Japan for 4 years and watching Japanese baseball, because there was no internet, you didn't have watching Major League Baseball games. Everything was on the Far East Network and radio. Watching some of the Japanese players, and there were American players that were on some teams, including the great Frank Howard, among others. Watching some of them migrate to Major League Baseball, for me, has been fun. Pitchers, whatever. Ichiro, unbelievable career. He's in the Baseball Hall of Fame even before he probably played his numbers and used the numbers that he had in Major League Baseball. Just an incredible career. 3,000 hits, 311 batting average, a bunch of everything else. The 7-time All-Star. Gold Glove. He's a great defensive player, too.
He had a laser.
Roberto Clemente type arm when he played in the outfield. All right, when we come back, Paul Catalina and his top 5.
Things done quickly.
That's good.
But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
That's far. So much forgiveness. Wait, did you say forgiveness like far? Or forgiveness like forgiveness? Forgiveness. 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 I'm hearing far. Forgiveness. Like forgiveness. Forgiveness? Forgiveness. I'm still hearing far, but whatever.
Introducing Stealth 2 with more carbon for more forgiveness.
Forgiveness. Just hit it.
Get ready for epic savings at Best Buy. Right now, you can save up to $700 on select Alienware and Dell gaming products. Perfect for leveling up your gaming experience. Plus, grab the latest Android Google Pixel at an unbeatable price. Don't miss these incredible deals. Shop now at bestbuy.com and upgrade your tech today.
Time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5. Why am I not wildly gesticulating? Because Garrett told me I couldn't. So, I'm going to sit here with my arms crossed the entire time. Today, Texas Beef House, by the way, thank you. But right now, I'm in my let's see if I can spike Garrett and Jack phase because they dared me to do this. Top 5 QBs to watch in 2025. Number 5, Garrett Nussmeier, LSU. The way he closed the season in that bowl game against Baylor was something really special. No Kyron Lacey. His top receivers really that he started the year with weren't there. They've got young receivers. They've got a kind of a mandate from the fan base to be better. And he's looking to be one of the top quarterbacks taken next year. I suspect Garrett Nussmeier to put up huge numbers next year and LSU to have an offense that's rejuvenated and hopefully, for their sake, running the ball better. And they're number 5 and not number 1 because Garrett made me fold my arms. Number 4, Rocco Becht. This guy is special. And not special in a Patrick Mahomes kind of way, a special in a Drew Brees maybe kind of way, which is still special. He's just got something about him where he turns it on. This is going to be some consistency at the quarterback position from Iowa State that I think is going to be really impressive. And watch him late in games. You do not want to leave any crumbs for him to eat up at the end because he will find them and they will win because that's kind of what his whole deal is. He's a really he's a rascal. That's what he is. He's kind of like Diego Pavia. You just don't want to count him out. The other thing about him is that
He's getting better as a passer, and he's already a pretty good runner. He's a dual-threat quarterback in the way that people don't normally talk about. Rocco Becht, one to watch in 2025. Number 3, Kevin Jennings. I think SMU is going to set offensive records this year with this guy. Dual threat like Rocco Becht, even better. Super athletic, doesn't want to go anywhere, loves being in Dallas, loves being at his university. Now look, that's not to say it's not going to change, but it's not going to change for 2025. Loves being in Rhett Lashley's offense. This is a dangerous guy as he gets better and better. He's already a captain as a redshirt freshman. He's just going to be a redshirt sophomore next year. Watch out for Kevin Jennings. He is going to dominate in 2025, and I would not be surprised to see SMU right back in the ACC title game this year. Number 2, Sam Leavitt. He is playing for the best quarterback coach in the country right now. You hear that, USC fans and Lincoln Riley? Yeah, Kenny Dillingham, best quarterback coach in the country. He's got Jordan Travis and Bo Nix under his belt. Now he's got Sam Leavitt, who some people were panicking about when Jaden Rashada left. Guess what? Jaden Rashada is about to be at another school. Sam Leavitt's about to be the quarterback for the defending Big 12 champs. This guy's only going to get better, and just like Kevin Jennings, just a redshirt sophomore. And number 1, and this one pains me to say, but the quarterback to watch in 2025 is going to be DJ Stinkin' Lagway at the University of Florida. This guy is amazing, and he shot true hope into a team that for over a decade has been stuck in the mud. But this guy is that friggin' good. I combine friggin' and freaking. That's how good he is. He's unbelievable. He alone saved Billy Napier's job this year. Graham Mertz getting hurt was the best thing that ever happened to Billy Napier, and I'm sorry, Graham, that you have to deal with that. But DJ Lagway being the quarterback changed the stars of the University of Florida program in a way that no coach has been able to since Urban Meyer left. That is the dude to watch, and they've got him for at least 2 more years. Probably just 2, because after that second one, he's going to be a top pick in the NFL draft. That's going to do it for us. We're backing in tomorrow. Smokey, tell the people goodbye in a very polite fashion.
I will not take demands or requests from Paul, but Garrett, I will for you and Craig.
Thank you.
All right. Paul Catalina, thank you very much. Top 5 brought to you by TexasBeefHouse.com, and, of course, an auction just around the corner. All right, Garrett, thank you very much. Also, Jack McKenzie. Without him today, Garrett, am I right? We don't get on the air.
It's a good chance. Good chance.
You know, I'll just say this. Garrett and Jack were working on that, and then when I got up off my fat ass, things changed.
Well,
so
did that. You know, I'm not
just
for
saying.
Craig Smoak and our great sponsors, for those of you who watch on YouTube, the chat room, Sikkim 365 app, and also on Twitter, I'm David Smoak. Have a great night. Back tomorrow. Loaded show. This is 365 Sports. Good night.